And 10. Freddy in the bathroom. Freddy is in an odd situation when you look at things from an outsider's perspective. Sure, we know he likes to hide from the camera, and technically these robots have no sense of biological sex, but like, come on, Freddy. You should know not to hide in the girl's bathroom no matter what, unless you want to get cancelled. However, that's not the scary part. Even though AI sentient enough to have that kind of crisis coming was pretty damn terrifying. The scary part is that what if we've been wrong this whole time? What if Chica isn't the only girl in the series? If Freddy is also a female, this could flip everything on its head. If we can't even understand who Freddy is meant to be, can we really trust anything we know about the series? We thought Scott threw a curveball when he added himself canonically into the games, but what would happen if Freddy was female? Oh boy, I'm having an existential crisis now. And 9 scrapped features. It turns out FNAF had a whole load of features planned that were never actually implemented fully or that were changed last minute. I talked about how Freddy was only meant to jump scare you after you lost power in another video, and I talked about a few others in different FNAF lists. If you guys want a whole list on scrapped FNAF features, let me know in the comments. Is it something that people would actually want because it's something that I want to do? Or is it more so something that I do just to talk about things and change things up, because we're kind of running out of FNAF lists. If you have any ideas, let me know. When I look at these features that I want to keep hidden for the purposes of another list, if you want it at least, I can only imagine how different the game would be if they had added these things like alarms for every hour, or animatronics coming down other hallways. It would have changed the game and potentially made it worse for wear. Number 8, Afton's Flesh. In Five Nights at Freddy's 3, we were introduced to the character known as Springtrap, the golden spring-locked bodysuit with William Afton barely clinging to life inside. He has been poked and prodded more than people who claim to have been abducted by aliens, and while he is still alive, it appears as if he's just been rotting away, or hell, even just gotten his skin torn off when the spring lock's activated, resulting in him getting spiked in multiple places, but still somehow surviving. In some of the scenes/menus we can get in Five Nights 3, we can actually see that this is the case, as we get a close look at Springtrap with his mouth open, revealing the hardly living body of William Afton inside. His skin has been peeled off from the looks of it, or it is at least extremely raw, but no mistake, that is old Willie Afton sitting in that suit. This can be seen regularly, and there's no need to really do anything specific to see it, but it does require a keen eye, and I can tell you I never noticed it. I can't even see the ketchup when it's right in front of me, let alone something hidden underneath a golden spring bodysuit. And at 7, golden background. FNAF 3 introduced the mechanic of needing to make repairs. Maybe the ventilation got shut down, or the audio was corrupted, or maybe the camera stopped working. And if any of this happens, the player needs to reboot that system. While you do this, the cameras you see are just static. However, sometimes this static can sometimes show the face of Golden Freddy. Like, dude, I know times are tough having to deal with like 15 missing children at this point, but there's no need to turn into a cam girl. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Oh crap. I'm not getting out of the semi. No matter what, it is indeed possible to see the face of Golden Freddy in the static. It's not clear, it does take some keen observation, but it's quite subtle. But once you see it, you will never be the same. Mostly because you'll have seen it, and that means that you will have changed, because before, you hadn't seen it. Logic. And at 6, the Hidden Skull. Man, FNAF 3 has a lot going for it, doesn't it? The FNAF 3 minigames are honestly the main game of FNAF 3. You gotta play them to get the right combo of numbers to dial into a brick wall, then you gotta click the toy Bonnie on your desk to get the glitch minigames, and then you need to put 5 kids to rest in order to get the good canon ending to the game. However, if you really pay attention during the free roam minigames, if you head to the supply closet, somewhere I don't believe that Shadow Freddy brings you, you can see the same supply room from the first game. However, going off script doesn't help you just to see a nostalgic location. Actually, it can reveal something even more sinister in the form of a child's skull on the shelf in the background. Yeah, in a series all about missing children, we get one of their skulls right behind us as we head up to be dismantled by the purple guy. I mean, I guess we're the dead child in this scenario, because we've already possessed the animatronic. So does that mean that it's our skull, and that's why we don't pay attention to it? Or is it because we were killed, so we know it would be there? Halfway through at number 5, nicknames. The news clippings at the end of the FNAF games always focus on one article. The place getting shut down, the place reopening, the place burning down, and in the first 2 FNAF games, the stories on the outside weren't actual articles. It was just some random text meant to fill up the space. It's commonly referred to as lorem ipsum, at least it was when I was in school. However, in FNAF 3, Scott decided to include some of the story of him creating the games for the fans with the more powerful glasses in the world. One article talks about how his last attempt at becoming a game designer was a toss-up between a remake of his first game, a sequel to another one of his games called Desolate Hope, and an entirely new game about animatronics and pizza. He went with the latter obviously, and that was probably the best decision he ever made. However, later on he also reveals that the iconic names of Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy were just nicknames he had in development. He would call them that before actually coming up with their real names. However, after calling them that for so long, he grew attached to the names and ended up keeping them. Probably another good decision if I'm being honest. Can you imagine what it would be like if Bonnie was named like Albert or something? Actually, that would be scarier. And at 4, paper plates. Let's take a break from FNAF 3. In FNAF 2, on one of the cams, you can see 3 paper plate crafts that resemble the 3-man animatronics. Sometimes, though, they can take on a mind of their own. At least the Bonnie one does. It can sometimes not appear on the camera view and then just later appear in your office. How did it get there? Who placed it there? Was it an animatronic? If it was, why didn't they attack us? Was it a phantom animatronic? Can they even do that? Is this plate animatronic possessed? Was a kid stuffed into the paper plate bag? Like, I know this is a horror game, but like, come on! Nobody else is working there at the time, and so how the hell did this thing move? Oh, and also it could have happened in FNAF 3 too. It was a short one, but it was a break nonetheless. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, family portrait. Family is everything to a lot of people, and while Scott was stuck in a job he didn't prefer and kept failing at making it in the career he really wanted, I can't speak for him personally, but I'm sure his family was helping him get through it. His wife and kids I'm sure are one of, if not the reason he woke up in the morning, so in honor of them and to get some more assets for the game, he used their images wherever he could. Particularly in FNAF 4's hallway, all the pictures on the wall are Scott and his family, and in Ultimate Custom Night, the face of the one you should not have killed is a picture of his son with the contrast cranked to the max. Family is so important, and Scott both honored them and immortalized them in his games by incorporating their family pictures into them, which is so sweet and honestly touching. Something that you don't expect to get from a FNAF game. Man, if only he treated MatPat like that. And ultimately, at number 2, living proof. Let's take another break from FNAF 3. Okay, that's enough. In FNAF 3's minigames, we see the story of how Springtrap came to be. We see Afton dismantle the animatronics and then unintentionally release the spirits of the dead children, who then come to spook him or get an apology. I don't know what the ghosts of 5 dead kids are gonna do aside from keep you in hell for all eternity until you escape by mind melding with VR video game testers. Anyway, as we see from the game, Afton gets scared by the spirits and then runs into a spring bodysuit to feel more powerful, probably hoping it would scare them because it was this character that killed them in the first place. However, thanks to the water dripping in from the outside, coupled with Afton's haste, he ends up getting snapped by spring locks and collapses. I've seen many comments over the months we've been talking about FNAF where people say that this is where Afton died. This honestly has never sat well with me. I always believed he was alive in the suit, and now I know why. In this scene, we never see him stop moving. Sure, he could have died and possessed Springtrap like some have suggested, but if that was the case, he would have stopped moving. He also wouldn't have eyes that are full of life like he does in the Springtrap suit, since, as I said before, we can see his flesh inside and those eyes are clearly his. Afton doesn't die in this moment, hence why I don't consider Springtrap an animatronic, because Afton is still alive and consciously controlling him. Afton himself is living proof that Afton never dies. MatPat even said it himself in his theory on that game. He said, "Notice he never stops moving." That's because he isn't dead. He only dies in Pizzeria Simulator after being lured back by Henry and being set ablaze, damning him to hell. Finally, in number 1, Butterfingers. On the main stage in FNAF 1, we see 3 animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. When we leave the camera or decides to cut out for a moment, we can see Bonnie leave, and then Chica, and then Freddy doesn't leave until like, no, night 4 or something, right? Well, as the animatronics leave the main stage, they drop their iconic item. Bonnie loses his guitar, Freddy loses his microphone, and Chica loses her cupcake. Why? Where did they go? Do they just leave them on the stage? Did it make it more intimidating? I need answers, Scott. Senpai noticed me. Both Scott and MatPat. In at 10, Freddy the Red-Nosed Jump Scare. In FNAF VR, it is actually possible to be jump scared by a random animatronic that you can't see coming while you're in the main room that you started in the Pizza Party minigame. It appears to be a version of Freddy with glowing red bottom teeth and what look like nostrils to me, but most people are saying eyes. But like glowing in the Photoshop sense, like they only have their outline glowing instead of being bright white on the inside and then glowing outward. It's like when you add a glow to the outside of something. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, just trust me, I literally went to school for Photoshop. And I make most of the gaming thumbnails. Recently I've been making like all of them, so yeah. I don't know what animatronic this is meant to be, but based on the teeth, it isn't Freddy because he has individual teeth. And it can't be Chica because the mouth shape isn't right, and the nostrils. It's not Bonnie or Foxy either. I really don't know who this could be, but now that I think about it, those are probably eyes. I just like the idea of big gaping nostrils, just like jump scaring you. And at 9, FNAF 3 Puppet. While we all know the puppet for being present in FNAF 2 and also appearing as hallucinations or a minigame character in FNAF 3, you can actually spawn him on the camera. While sometimes you can see the reflection of the puppet's legs in one of the cameras, you can also see what looks to be actual puppet parts in Cam 8 in FNAF 3. While sometimes in that same camera you can hallucinate the puppet, if you look just beside the Camera 9's box, you can see something that looks to be a mask, with streaks coming out of the eyes and a mouth just below. This could be the puppet, or just a coincidence. Or maybe it's something else that nobody has really cared enough to look into. I think it's the puppet personally. Maybe not a working puppet, but a puppet figure nonetheless. And it ate chewing gum. Chewing gum recently became a big thing in the FNAF series, only to serve as justification as to the links between two characters. But either way, it's still canon that Michael Afton loves to chew gum. So much so that he actually writes about it in the survival logbook and says that he wants to knock the bad habit. Yeah, it was never demonstrated in the games, and was kind of dismissed in the survival logbook until the latest Fazbear Frights book was released, called Step Closer. That proved who the character of Michael Afton was meant to be, the big brother from FNAF 4, the one who was endearingly called Foxy Bro by MadPat and I'm sure others. This was the only reason that detail was included, to link him to another character. It was never shown in game, not even indicated. During Immortal and the Restless, he would just sit there eating popcorn and he wouldn't have gum anywhere in sight. I mean, I'm sure this wasn't established yet and Scott didn't think of it, but come on! Imagine if this had been right in front of us the whole time. That would have been so good. Scott, update sister location. And it's 7, Realistic Baby. Continuing on about the books and their connections to the games, Baby could very well be a realistic version of Henry's dead daughter Charlotte who goes on to possess the puppet. Which would totally be weird because Baby was also possessed by Elizabeth Afton. In the final FNAF novel, The Fourth Closet, which is the final novel, the rest are collections of short stories, it's revealed that the main character of Charlie is the last in a series of robots meant to recreate Henry's daughter who was killed at the age of 3. This character is also revealed to be the baby animatronic that can switch between looking hyper-realistic, like a normal human, to the normal circus baby we all know and love, with the use of small pins with balls on the ends. And what do we see the circus baby model in the FNAF games? Small pins with balls on the ends. This is something incredibly interesting and revolutionary to the story of the games, but not in like a lore-breaking kind of way. It just shows that Baby could look like whoever she wanted to be, and perhaps that's why she led Ennard. But after she couldn't do it anymore because she lost the pins, she was kicked out. I don't know, it's just a theory. A circus baby theory! I blew out the mic. And at 6, Grandfather Clock. Every FNAF game until Sister Location, you needed to survive until 6 AM. Doing so would have you complete the night and move on to the next one. However, when you complete a night and make it to 6 AM, you get notified by a grandfather clock. Obviously, most of us were just so relieved to survive that we didn't pay attention to it, but looking back, why would an alarm at the end of our shift be a grandfather clock? It could be perhaps because everything is just a dream, or maybe we have a custom alarm tone on our phone. I know you can customize ringtones on phones, so perhaps that's why. I mean, you could argue that these games take place before cell phones were common, especially smartphones, but FNAF 3 would for sure take place in an era where phones were common. And Fazbear Entertainment has always been established as a company with technology far beyond its time. So perhaps we can say the same thing for this whole universe. You know, the universe of FNAF has a whole bunch of high-tech tech earlier than it's supposed to. Halfway through at number 5, you won't get tired, will you? In Ultimate Custom Night, the 7th FNAF game, there are a whole bunch of voiced lines that play after you die, depending on the character that killed you. You can get a range from long-winded stories dedicated to MagPat, to lines basically damning you and criticizing you for killing a baker's dozen of kids. Rightfully so, but for me, they're all brave. However, there is one line that would stick out to those who played FNAF World, at least through Update 1.2 when Foxy Fighters got added, where Toy Chica said, "You won't get tired of my voice, will you?" Well, it depends. If you keep talking like that, yes. If you take off your beak, also yes. Oh wait, I guess it doesn't really depend. In Ultimate Custom Night, if Toy Chica kills you, you can potentially hear her say, "You won't get tired of dying, will you?" Which is both a reference and serves as indication that we're trapped here and we'll keep dying over and over again. Fun. If Toy Chica is there, I don't know if it's hell or heaven. No, it's definitely hell. I'm not Eddie. Hey, mommy. And at 4, a child. Ah, Bachelor number 1. The child-eating, capturing, and torturing killing machine that won the last round of the killing floor. However, for those of you who didn't already know, and I'm sure there's at least a couple of you, the body of Funtime Freddy does indeed contain a child, as evidenced by the wireframe blueprint where we literally see a child inside of his containment chamber. I don't know if that kid is dead or alive, but based on the lack of oxygen, I'm guessing he's dead because, you know, lack of oxygen. But yeah, in case you didn't know, there is literally a dead kid inside of Funtime Freddy. Do with that what you will. And at 3, it's me. Hey, look, I rhymed. There is one FNAF VR Easter egg that we haven't found yet, but there is also a FNAF VR Easter egg that very few have found. The one only a few have found is the It's Me Easter egg from the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, where if you manage to get 3 clown posters in the Victory Barn and then hit them all with a dart, the barn flips into blacklight rave mode and the banner switches from saying "You win" to "It's me" in reference to Golden Freddy. We don't know what this could mean. Hell, it could mean that we're still playing as Michael Afton somehow. But it's also weird because currently Golden Freddy is down in hell with William, torturing him for eternity, so it's unclear as to why this is possible, but it happened nonetheless. At least if we can believe the few videos that are out there. You say Dawko found it, but I've seen no video, okay? So, pics or it didn't happen. I need to go back live stream searching for this, though. Like, I need to know if it's true. Based on my own experiences. You know, that's the only way we can really know, right? And ultimately, in at number 2, Help Wanted. During an interview around a month or so ago, a representative from Steelwool Studios said that there was a detail or Easter egg in Help Wanted that hasn't been found. I literally mentioned it last number. With the experience the fans have to tearing these games to shreds, it's almost impressive that we don't know where this could possibly be. We've torn the game to bits, we've boundary broke and data mined, but we still missed it? The interview reads, quote, "The FNAF fandom is keen at finding hidden secrets in every Five Nights at Freddy's game, but is there something in Help Wanted that the fans haven't found yet? Yes. Oh, did you expect me to say it? No dice." The same interview, the infamous box was mentioned yet again. Could the two be connected? And where could the secret be hiding? Perhaps in the DLC? Curse of Dreadbear was packed with all kinds of Easter eggs and secrets. Could it have been there? Perhaps in the hallway minigame? Or maybe we're looking in the wrong place. Let me know your theories down below, and let Matt Pat know about this, and if he doesn't know already. We all need to put our heads together for this. But like, with reasonable social distancing and wearing masks, obviously. Put our heads together 6 feet apart, or more. Finally, in number 1, the rules. Thank you to Maggie Shannon on yesterday's community post for pointing this out to me as I was scrolling through the comments. The rules for safety in the Fazbear establishments are simple. They appear on posters in the first FNAF game, and they read as follows. 1. Don't run. 2. Don't yell. 3. Don't scream. These seem pretty reasonable, right? Even if 2 and 3 are basically the same thing. But rule 4 is where it gets weird, so I'll save that for last. 5. Stay close to mom. 6. Don't touch Freddy. 7. Don't hit. 8. Leave before dark. I would just take it as leave before closing. Rule number 4 is honestly the weirdest thing and is honestly scary when you think about why they would need this rule. Rule number 4 is don't poop on the floor. I'm being totally honest, you can look at it in-game. Management even thanks you at the end of the sign. The FNAF fandom page has better rules than this. Hell, even most subreddits have better rules than Freddy Fazbear's. And we were all wondering why Afton was killing kids, because there literally has to be a rule about not taking a wicked growler on the floor. Because if I was to do that, I'd be violating at least 3 rules. 4, 2, and 3. I didn't want to have to put it out with my fingers, because I would have failed that massively. 4, 2, and 3. No, I can't do it. In a 10, security room. In the shot of the security room where Gregory stands after all the cameras shut off, we see the screens flickering static as if they were unable to show video. However, a closer look actually reveals that these cameras are showing images in the static. Some contrast and brightness tinkering can reveal a slightly clearer picture, but we can't be exactly sure of what it is. To me, it looks like a really blurry version of the supply closet from FNAF 1, at least one of them does. I have a feeling that the glitches are versions of cameras from previous games, and I wouldn't put it past Scott. There are other images that are really really blurry, like really low quality ultrasounds, but if you have any ideas as to what these secret images can be, let me know down below. And at night, Vanny glitches. During the scenes focusing on the individual animatronics on the elevator, there is text that shows up between each shot. These say when fear takes hold and reality fails, the stage is set and insanity prevails. Each line of text glitches onto the screen, but within those glitches are hidden images of the antagonist of this game, none other than Vanny, the reluctant follower of William Afton. There are two images that are shown, one of her looking to the left and the other of her looking towards the center. The eyes that linger over these glitches also always appear above her head. Having these images be glitches on the screen obviously is a reference to Glitch Trap, and having eyes above her head is symbolic of being watched. So could Glitch Trap be watching her through these animatronics, making sure she's doing her job? They all have red eyes after all. Only time will tell. And it is Shadow Bonnie. During the scene where we see the first alcove containing the animatronics, we see Chica rocking on her guitar. Firstly, this appears to be the home of the animatronics while they're not working or during the night. But no matter how dumb that is from an AI perspective, there is another thing that is slightly odd about this little room. There seems to be some form of microphone or perhaps some other electronic attached to her desk that, while having a light directly on it, is still pitch black. It is also in the rough shape of Shadow Bonnie as they appeared in FNAF 2. It's not perfect, but it's still noticeable if you're looking for it. This could be a coincidence or a nice nod to a character that will be appearing in this game, like how Scott made Chica's party world for Sister Location. And it's 7 Cupcake. Also in front of that same alcove, we can see a few frames of Chica's famous cupcake in a display case, almost like it's a museum, or perhaps a memoriam to the old design of Chica that they had to abandon for this establishment, or because the fans love the cupcake and would be furious if it wasn't here in some capacity. There looks to be a plaque on the front of the display as well, indicating that maybe it's a bit of a showcase for the cupcakes and perhaps its history with the character of Chica. Maybe the Fazbear Entertainment Company is trying to push sugary foods less, or maybe they just want to get rid of the cupcakes since it was involved with a version of Chica that was possessed by the soul of a child after Afton offered them more pizza. Maybe this whole area is dedicated to ensuring the reign of Afton never comes back. Good luck with that. Someone didn't listen to him when he says he always comes back, and obviously someone didn't look at the final shot of that trailer. And at 6, the eyes. There is a scene where we are running through maybe what can be thought of as a maintenance tunnel probably below the Pizzaplex. We don't know if anything is chasing us, but we can guess so since this shows over the line they won't stop hunting you, none of them will stop hunting you, suggesting that we are in fact being chased. Now at the very beginning of the scene to the left of the screen, on the very edge we see some lights. However, as our character runs, the fence or railing beside us cuts that light into 2 separate dots, very reminiscent of the eyes of good old Golden Freddy, the one who will not rest torturing Afton's soul in hell. While this may just be a coincidence, we know Scott doesn't do that sort of thing. There were probably multiple shots of this scene and he would have chosen this one because of that tiny detail. That may have been a mistake, but now I can't unsee it. Halfway through at number 5, design change. This is something I didn't notice until I went into the comments of that trailer. In the summer of 2020, Funko leaked the designs of the action figures for Security Breach, thus leaking the designs of the animatronics. People were pissed about this, obviously, since Scott had specifically told Funko not to release anything. What is it with Funko and leaks? Anyway, the designs of the characters from the gameplay trailer are actually slightly different to those of the action figures that were released. This is most notable on Roxanne's clothes, where Scott moved the black star shapes, and on Monty's guitar, where he removed or made the black stripes smaller. At least from what I can see. Chica's guitar is also a lighter blue and mostly white, as opposed to white and a darker blue from the original action figure. And the animatronics in the trailer are properly proportioned. The action figure heads just weird me out. Like, the pop figures are fine because it's meant to be that way, it makes sense, but the action figures, it's weird. And at 4, Balora's theme. Over the footage of us being shown the individual animatronics of Chica, Roxanne, and Monty, we hear some music that would potentially be triggering to fans who played Sister Location. Here's the clip. This is very reminiscent of Balora's theme from Sister Location, not the song she sings, but rather her theme music that has no lyrics. This is more of a remix version of the song instead of the original, but it could be a hint at something much more. Like Vanny says at the end of the trailer, there is more going on here than you realize. It then cuts to something else, and that makes us think that that's what's going on, that's more, but we realize that. So what if this truly means this could be in the introduction of William Afton's wife? but Laura is used as an allegory for his wife, not being possessed, but Laura isn't possessed, but just as a mother figure to the mini Renas and even kind of Baby if you look at it that way. And if you do, the connection only grows since Baby is possessed by Elizabeth Apton, William's daughter, or was. We don't know what happened to his wife, she has no official name. Some think she died naturally and that drove him to killing, some think William killed her, others think she ran away after learning about what William does. Maybe we will learn more about her in this game. Maybe she is indeed the security guard. Maybe her name is Vanessa. Maybe it's just because that music is creepy. Who knows? Getting close to the end in number 3, staff only. Near the end of the trailer, before the security breach logo, we see Vanny pop out from behind a door labeled staff only, indicating that she is a staff member. But why is staff an acronym? The term staff is used in many different ways, as a plural noun, adjective, and even a verb. But none of those uses use the term like an acronym. In fact, when I searched for the acronym, even with quotation marks, nothing came up. So this is definitely something odd. What could this acronym stand for? And is there actually a meaning behind it, or is Scott just giving us a red herring? Let me know your theories down below. Penultimately in number 2, purple. The color purple is everywhere in this trailer, no doubt a connection to the purple guy himself, William Afton. The trailer starts off with him speaking and then he is present throughout the whole trailer. There is purple in nearly every shot, and if there isn't, it's a color that makes purple, blue or red. Plenty of the neon lights are purple, purple is a common secondary color throughout the Pizzaplex, even the logo that shines on the wall is purple. Chica's playpen has plenty of purple, the Pizzaplex alcoves have purple, Chica's guitar is purple, Roxanne's leg warmers are either a dark purple or blue, but she's also wearing a red shirt. Monty's gloves and shoes are purple. The only animatronic that doesn't seem to have purple on them is Freddy. Maybe this indicates that he isn't under Afton's control. Everything in this trailer for the most part is related to the color purple. The logo is red and the text is glowing blue. Not to mention the ending with, finally, and at number 1, the arm. The final shot of this trailer is clearly a reference to William Afton. I know you noticed that, but what you might have missed, however, is the reflecting purple light that we can see in the reflection of his arm, throwing any theory that this is the Stitch Wraith out the window. At least, maybe. The arm also appears to have been melted at some point, or has had something melted onto it, like flesh perhaps, or the remains of a suit that caught fire after being lured there by your son and your former business partner. And a 10, Nightmare. One thing that was mentioned when we first saw it, but more so forgotten, is the complexity of the security logbook. It messed with everything we knew about the series, but then messed with everything we thought we knew about the logbook itself. One of the key things that sticks out to me is the fact that Mike drew Nightmare on page 41. Those were just an illusion, which we know thanks to the Ultimate Custom Night's death voice lines from characters like Nightmare Freddy, who said this time there is more than an illusion to fear. And I am given flesh to be your tormentor. So, how could Mike know what Nightmare looks like? Crying Child was in a coma while he was seeing them, so he couldn't have described them, especially in that much detail. Where did he get it from? And at 9, FNAF World. Hell. FNAF World is a game I'm sure we'd all like to forget. However, what I'm seeing again and again is the importance of this game from a lore standpoint, both from the Helpy Facts lists as well as this one. From the Helpy Facts list, Helpy looks very similar to the style of the characters from FNAF World, and I propose that he could be a crossover character, linking the two games together in an unexpected way as an example of how you can escape a game world. But now I've seen that the characters of Tangle, White Rabbit, and Bounce Pot can all appear in Ultimate Custom Night, in motion using their battle animations. This not only links the game to the main FNAF canon, but also shows that William's idea of entering a video game and escaping from one came from FNAF World, a game that revolves around a game affecting the real world. And it ain't blood on the cover. The security logbook is a real point of contention for the series. Whatever, I'm not talking about what's inside the book content-wise. I'm talking about how there are literal pages covered or splattered with blood, and the restaurant just gave it to you as if nothing was wrong. What the hell happened to cause blood to get all over this thing? And thanks to the finish on the blood on the cover, at least the hardcover version, it's shiny, meaning it must be new. And I'm prone to nosebleeds, but I know that that is not a nosebleed. You don't lose that much blood. Well, unless you're me, but that's because I have veins that poke out of my nose, okay? I had to get the cauterized in elementary school, which means I had to get like 20 small burns on my nose in each side, okay? It was a mess. But not even that would generate this much blood. So why is it covered in blood? We see coffee stains, that makes sense, but blood? And why are they only mentioning that someone else wrote in the book, not bled all over it? That's not sanitary. And at 7, payoff. There has been a lot of crap that goes down in these restaurants. Missing kids, murder, animatronics that they felt needed access to a crime database to scan everyone that comes into the restaurant that ended up failing. But even after all of this,
No lawsuits or anything? We saw papers talking about the missing children's incident, but nothing about lawsuits. The company shut down to downsize, but we've seen no evidence of a lawsuit or arrests. Sure, they had an investigation, but not a good one when there was obvious dead body stench coming from the animatronics. I don't care how sweaty and gross these kids and this pizza is, nothing would make it smell that bad normally. This to me indicates some form of a payoff at the very least, like maybe William has the police in his pocket, or a deal with someone saying that if he finds the key to living forever, that he shares it and he gets away. There has to be something more here. If I was a parent, I wouldn't stop until my kid had found justice. Like, where did these 15 kids' parents go? In its 6th performance. It has been stated before that the voice actor for William Afton, PJ Hayward, based his performance for the character off of Anthony Hopkins' version of Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, who, if you didn't know, is a cold-blooded cannibal serial killer in the movie. So bad that he's behind a full glass wall instead of bars, so he won't bite your face off. What if this is for more reasons than just being creepy? I mean, no body, no crime, right? If William was eating the kids his robots were trapping, it could cause them enough agony to create more remnant, and more remnant means more studying for the mad scientist, and one step closer to the answer to immortality. He didn't take killing kids off the table, something that most people in prison will even kill you for if that's why you're thrown into the slammer, so eating them isn't really too much of a stretch for this guy. Maybe it started off with him thinking that that's how he was going to get the answer. I mean, he originally stuffed them into the stomachs of the animatronics, right? Halfway through number 5, exotic butters. The security logbook is really appearing a lot in this video, and that's because in the hype for security breach, we've forgotten all about the that is this book. Not only does Mike draw Nightmare in the book, a representation of Crying Child's death, he also draws things connecting him to other games, like exotic butters and baskets of money from Sister Location, or a gravestone seemingly similar to the ones from FNAF 6's gravestone ending, or the casual bongos from Sister Location, and a Freddy Fazbear logo with blood surrounding Freddy's mouth, like how Crying Child got chomped, or spooky animatronics and ghost sheets, which could be a reference to the missing children's incident from the first game, since FNAF VR's Curse of Dreadbear DLC wasn't out yet. And this is ironically on the same page as the maze, like the corn maze from that game. And why is there a picture of mangled up Chica on the very last page of this book? So many damn questions that we just forgot about thanks to the new game. It's exactly what he wanted. And at 4, Nightmare voice line. In Ultimate Custom Night, you can fight off Nightmare, and his voice lines when he kills you can really prove what we've all been thinking. Well, most of us. Or some of us. I don't really know the ratio to Wilhelm versus Micatory believers in the comments. Nightmare's voice lines include, "You will not be spared, you will not be saved," indicating that someone has been spared or saved before. But from what? Well, this next line tells us, "I am your wickedness made of flesh." And who out of Mike and William is wicked? William, the killer of the series. His wickedness is killing, therefore Nightmare would be William's desire to kill personified. He also says, "The shadow fears me," and until this point I didn't know if he meant death or William himself. However, I think that this proves he means William, since the purple guy is the shadow of a man. William either fears his own desire to kill, or he fears the fact that it took his children from him, both Elizabeth and Crying Child. And to further prove this is William, Nightmare says, "I am here to claim what is left of you," since he was burnt to a crisp in FNAF 6's fire. So there isn't really much left, just like how his wickedness came to claim Crying Child. And at 3, debunked. On April 1st of the year or the year after it was released, Scott added Nightmare Freddy, Foxy, and Phone Guy to Ultimate Custom Night. Each of their mechanics was based on a debunked FNAF theory. Most interestingly, Nightmare Freddy's mechanics were based off of Dream Theory, proving that these games are actually happening and it's not a dream, which makes everything more complicated because now, God, we have to figure this out properly and can't just go around saying it was all a dream. Anyway, the Dream Theory along with Foxy being helpful and the Phone Guy being Purple Guy were all confirmed 100% false at this point, resulting in a whole lot more issues for the series because I can't just say that it was all a dream. Even if I wasn't doing it before, now I can't do it ever. Only FNAF 4 was a dream. It was like a coma dream. Great. And at 2, hallucinations. Some believe that there are 2 spirits possessing the security logbook, and that one of them is Crying Child. But I believe that these altered texts aren't another spirit, since it wouldn't make much sense for the 2 spirits to communicate in different ways, one using faded text and the other one altering what was already in the book, which seems very difficult to me. I believe that these are hallucinations that we're seeing from Mike's perspective. He writes in the book in red ink, and that's established early on, but by the end of the book, Mike is incredibly tired and stressed, as indicated by the incident logs on page 108. Something happened at 8:11, but we don't know if it was AM or PM. Considering how we don't start our shift in game until late, we can assume AM. However, we wouldn't get to work at exactly 12, he'd be there beforehand, and if he was having to fight off animatronics all night, he would certainly be stressed. Stress and fatigue would certainly cause hallucinations, and even if we aren't seeing this from Mike's perspective, we would be seeing it from ours. Maybe this is where Michael got the idea to use the name Mike in the first game. Maybe by reading this, we are Michael Afton learning about who we are. This could be where we get the idea to go to sister location, or it could be just before our father contacts us to go do so. Finally, in at number 1, death by Afton. So many people in the series die because of William Afton. Obviously, he's the killer, the catalyst, the one who started it all. However, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, at least when she's possessed a robot. Remember FNAF World's original ending, the introduction of Baby? Well, she ended up killing Henry, the man who's sitting at the desk. We know this is Henry because, well, he says he made Baby and can't deactivate her, but he ended up getting killed. William wasn't dead at this point, and Henry was the only other one who could have helped in the creation of Baby. He did so not knowing what William was planning, I'm sure, but then Baby kills him. Now, Circus Baby's Pizza World was shut down after one day because of what it did to Elizabeth, so this would most likely take place after that, meaning that Elizabeth was inside Baby when she killed Henry. Elizabeth Afton, the sweet little girl who got too close to Baby, took Henry's life. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. Henry's daughter was taken by William, and Henry was taken by William's daughter. And it's the Bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is one of the biggest contention points in the whole FNAF series. It makes some theories, breaks others, and has been debated since the very first game when we learned about this very mysterious incident. However, we've never really been able to determine who caused the bite. It's typically thought to be Jeremy who got bit, but who did the biting? Some think Mangle, others think Fredbear, and some think Toy Chica. And some think Chica thanks to Ultimate Custom Night, which honestly just outright tells us who caused the bite if you listen to Toy Chica's death lines. One of which being, "Where's my beak?" Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Where's my beak? Lodged in your forehead, of course.
Which is where the frontal lobe is located, which is the part of the brain removed in the Bite of 87. This could also allude to Scott's clue on MatPat's FNAF livestream that said, why would Toy Chica be missing her beak? And it would be because she caused the Bite of 87, and without the beak, she couldn't hurt anyone else. Like how I keep saying my pug can't really hurt anyone because he can't fit his flat mouth around you unless you willingly give him a finger or something. I don't know why he scares people. And the 9 Scrap Trap. What the hell happened to Springtrap between games to cause such warps? Sure, he was burnt in FNAF 3, but we've seen him alive and well and not damaged in Sister Location's Night 7 ending cutscene, so where did all this additional damage and warping come from? The head becomes larger and so do the feet. I genuinely don't know how this would make sense. We know they're the same person thanks to Ultimate Custom Night's voice lines, but I'm so confused as to what could have happened. I'm sure the extra damage comes from fending off wild animals, since you know, he's a body that would attract scavengers, but how did the head of the suit get bigger? It's not like it evolved. My only guess is that William either broke into some Fazbear warehouse like the one he visits in the Man in Room 1280, or he made a new one to try to protect him better, since we see extensive damage and I don't really know how much time there is between Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, so he could have been out there for a while. And it ate Ballora. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night really has a lot of lore hints and clues for us, so it will be appearing a lot on this list and in other lists in the future, I'm sure. I'm just now starting to understand the importance of this game for all of FNAF lore. One of these clues, however, is one of Ballora's death lines from Ultimate Custom Night. After killing you, Ballora will on occasion say, "These are strange circumstances that have brought us together."
These are strange circumstances that have brought us together.
And I'm sorry, but based on her other lines, I don't think she's just talking about how they're in hell or in purgatory. I think that this is about how they met. Well, how William and the woman that Ballora represents met. In a previous video, I theorized that maybe Vlad and Clara from Immortal and the Restless perhaps represent William and Henry's wife, a scandalous affair that drove him into killing Charlotte so that he could be with her, since she would have no ties to Henry anymore. But I wasn't sure of it. But honestly, those would be strange circumstances that could have brought them together. I mean, maybe he didn't kill Charlotte to be with her, but killing Charlotte drove her away from Henry into the arms of another man. Williams, perhaps. I mean, she asks, why do you hide inside your walls? Maybe she's talking to Henry and not William. And it's 7, Stranger Danger. Ultimate Custom Night has some funny lines and moments. Comedy gold in the form of Mr. Hippo's death lines, or rather speeches about Lemonade, and Happy Frog and her ninja skills. However, one of the most iconic and funny lines has to come from Ned Bear. I don't know why these animatronics go so hard in this game, but whatever. Not only does he joke about being killed by obscure secondary characters, but he also just yells Stranger Danger.
Stranger danger!
I think it's funny and a nice detail because, well, that's the one line that could have saved countless lives. But instead, the kids followed Golden Bonnie to the back room for more pizza, and instead of getting stuffed crust, they got stuffed into a suit. Literally, Stranger Danger would have saved their little lives, but they didn't listen to their parents. It's a shame, really, and it's kind of nuts of me to think that this is funny, but I mean, it is. Ned Bear is the only one thinking straight in this world, and I am here for it. I stan Ned Bear. Ned's Declassified Pizzeria Survival Guide. Scott, get the rights and make it a thing. And at 6, the one you should not have added. Scott has added a whole load of characters into the series, so much so that there are too many characters for my taste in Ultimate Custom Night. But some of the characters he's added are a little too familiar for him, and it could have lore implications that we don't know about yet. Firstly, Scott added himself into FNAF lore. Sure, it's not him, it's not Scott Cawthon, but he is the face of the indie game developer that made some games about the tragedies in the FNAF world. He used a picture of himself when he could have used anyone, hell, a stock photo, or even nobody. Then we have Cassidy, the one you should not have killed. This one is Scott's son, as confirmed by Scott himself in either a Reddit or Steam post, I don't quite remember which, meaning that Scott's son, in universe, is dead. Yikes. And he also added the rest of his family, just subtly, since all the FNAF 4 pictures of family or kids that are visible in the hallways are of his family, since you didn't have to pay for any stock images or anything, as confirmed by Scott in the same post I referred to earlier, addressing the one you should not have killed. The one you should not have added, since now they're technically dead. Get it now? Halfway through number 5, final moments. Something seems off to me about this game. Why would William be tortured in hell by a version of himself? That version of course being Scrap Trap. And I think it's an issue that multiple people have, and why the whole mic trap thing is so popular. Well, this is probably William's life just flashing before his eyes. Every animatronic in this game William has had something to do with. He was there in FNAF 6, he was Scrap Trap, he created the animatronics and the sister location animatronics, he caused the nightmare animatronics to be created in the mind of Crying Child. This is basically his whole life flashing before his eyes, but not in order, all at once. Torturing him for his misdeeds and the horrible things he's done. Maybe he regrets it and that's why he shows up as well. Or maybe he only regrets losing his children. Hence why all his version says is I always come back, since he hopes his children could do the same, or wishes they could. And at 4, Wake Up. Nightmare On, or Nightmare On Net, whatever you want to call it, is one of the scariest animatronics there is. Added in the Halloween DLC for FNAF 4, Scott deemed him not canon, but he's still here in Ultimate Custom Night, saying I am the dark reflection of what you have created.
I am the fearful reflection of what you have created.
The puppet, since William killed Charlotte, who ended up possessing it. But that's not the line I wanted to focus on, we knew that already. What I wanted to acknowledge was the line, "This is a nightmare you won't wake from."
This is a nightmare that you won't wake from.
This is a subtle way of saying that someone woke up from the nightmare before. Like someone may have woken up before, but this is a nightmare you won't wake from. Who would have woken up, you ask? Who else was the only other person to see the nightmare animatronics? Crying Child. Oh wait, same thing. This line also helps prove my point. Crying Child somehow survived or was saved from death, like Nightmare also seems to hint towards, but we heard a flat line at the end of FNAF 4. That's because he was removed from the machine, not because he had died. I'm telling you, it's a thing. Getting close to the end into number 3, FNAF Multiverse. The FNAF Multiverse is already a thing. The original novels are their own universe, despite sharing characters and plot points. The Fazbear Frights books are their own universe, even though they help answer other questions that we've had, like Scott said himself when he announced the original 5, and the games are their own universe. But what if the games themselves are multiple universes. There are so many points that conflict with themselves when trying to establish a timeline. MatPat decided to put emphasis on the events that were mentioned later in the timeline, but what if they conflict because they're not the same Earth? I mean, we have the FNAF game multiverse thanks to the Fazbear Fanverse initiative Scott started, funding some installments in new fan games and helping them with marketing, retail, and merch. So why not have the games or the events of the games that don't help the timeline take place in another universe? I mean, it would screw up a load of stuff, but it could help explain a load of stuff too. He didn't start a fanverse for no reason. There has to be some sort of tie-in. Penultimately, in number 2, burning. Look, I'm all for setting the souls of the damned free of their chains and letting them move on, but we need to remember the souls that we're dealing with in this series. They're typically kids, right? But doesn't it feel weird knowing what happens when you think of it like that? Sure, we set the kids free in FNAF 3, but we know the remnant can only be destroyed with fire, and since the kids are still here thanks to the remnant, we have to burn Fazbear Frights down, causing the fire at the end of the game, but also causing the souls of the victims to be set free. We're burning the kids on the regular in this series, and in FNAF 6 we burn a load of them thanks to Molten Freddy, who's entered, so he has multiple different souls. And the only one who wasn't a kid, William, managed to escape and got sent to the hospital where he would be taken to a Fazbear warehouse so he could possess a hard drive and come back to life again. It's nuts, man. I don't understand why so many kids have to suffer in this series. Scott must not be good with discipline. Or he uses what happens in these games as discipline. Attaboy, Scott. Strike fear into their hearts. That's what my dad did. Finally, in at number 1, the real protagonist. Orville the Elephant in Ultimate Custom Night is one of the animatronics that's really memeable. Not as memeable as his counterparts perhaps, but he does give us a lot of information if you're paying attention. Take this one line from Ultimate Custom Night for example. He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I won't let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
Hold on a second. If this is really the voice of Cassidy, Golden Freddy, speaking through the elephant, then why would they say he tried to release you? He tried to release us. Henry was the one who tried to release William in FNAF 6, we know this from his end speech, and we know that's the one that Cassidy is referring to since they said I won't let that happen, which is why they're doing it at that exact moment. But we thought that Michael was the one who released the spirits of the kids in FNAF 3, which is where Golden Freddy has their happiest day. Could it be that we've been playing as Henry this whole time with the exception of Sister Location? I mean, we didn't release any souls in Sister Location. That would mean Henry is Mike Schmidt, and that the Mike who owned the logbook would be Henry, and that we'd be reading it as Michael Afton? This may deserve its own video. Holy crap, this could change everything. And in 10, MatPat is canon, kind of. Thanks to the Fazbear Frights book Bunny Call and more so the story in the flesh, MatPat is basically canon in the FNAF universe. Sure, it's kinda nuts that Scott wrote an MPreg fanfic about MatPat, but the crazier thing is that makes MatPat canon in the FNAF world. Technically, since the character's name isn't Matthew Patrick, and he's working on a new FNAF game and not a new FNAF theory, but he's MatPat's in-universe stand-in. While game theory or Dawko may not be canon, the essence of MatPat is. And he ended up getting killed by a plush trap baby that crawled its way out of his stomach. I haven't finished the story, mostly because I keep cringing so hard, but I don't understand how working on a video game turns into an animatronic crawling out of your stomach, killing you instantly. But hey, it's FNAF, and this is yet another instance of someone escaping from a game and entering the real world. However, this time it's Springtrap, which is a version of William Afton, so joy. I guess he will be busting out of the game. And at 9, confirmation. The actual confirmed information we have about the FNAF series is limited. Basically, Scott has only said a few things are true and a few things are false. The rest of these theories about the timeline and the logbook are all based on other theories. Scott hasn't confirmed the name of Crying Child or the name of the Afton family mother. He hasn't even confirmed if William had a wife or if his kids are adopted. He hasn't confirmed if the logbook is possessed or if Michael is the brother. Those are still just theories, not fact. And people treating these theories as fact and hating on things that aren't exactly what MatPat has said is extremely misguided. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. Scott has confirmed that Springtrap is William. He's confirmed that Dream Theory, Foxy being kind, and the phone guy being William Afton or Purple Guy aren't true in the April Fool's mechanics for Fredbear, Foxy, and Phone Guy for Ultimate Custom Night. And he's confirmed that Sister Location takes place in 1983, but not Who Did the Bite of 87. He's also confirmed that Glitch Trap is William Afton using the Easter egg from Curse of Dreadbear, where Glitch Trap dances next to the FNAF 4 house in the distance, an Easter egg I showed off in our recent FNAF VR livestream. So stop coming to the comments of my theories saying that Michael can't possibly be the crying child because he's Foxy, bro. I said he was both, not one or the other. It's incredibly disrespectful to the research and effort I put into that video. It's just as valid a theory as anything MatPat suggests. Okay, rant over. Thank you for coming to my Fred talk. And at 8, Phone Guy death. Phone Guy's death from the first FNAF game is ultra sus. Firstly, we hear banging on a closed door, something that only happens because of Foxy. But then we hear Freddy's theme, March of the Toreador. Then some groaning that's only given off by Bonnie and Chica, and then Golden Freddy's jump scare. Why all of this attention? Only on night 5 does it get this intense for the player, and the Phone Guy only has 4 nights, so why did this character come to such a horrific end? And who actually did the killing? We know that the Phone Guy thought he'd get stuffed into a suit, hence why he asked us to check them, or maybe he was planning on hiding in a suit to try to survive, since the main theory in this game is that they put you in a suit because you look like a naked endoskeleton and that's against company policy. But why would Golden Freddy have been the one to kill him? The other animatronics have priority while killing, at least mechanics wise, so why on earth is that happening in that room? Like, what's going on? I don't know. And at 7, Smiling Purple Guy. The first time we see the Purple Guy was in FNAF 2, and in the Foxy Go 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 minigame we see him sitting in the corner smiling. This is the Purple Guy, by the way, not some pink guy. Scott confirmed that in the minigames section of the Freddy Files book. But in that minigame we see the Purple Guy smiling while Foxy runs out to greet 5 dead kids. Why? This originally led us to believe that the Phone Guy was Purple Guy, since Phone Guy also says he loves Foxy and distrusts the puppet. But as I said earlier, this was confirmed not to be the case by Scott himself, so why is the Purple Guy smiling? Is it because William's favorite animatronic was Foxy as well? Or was it because he was happy about the killings or seeing Foxy's reaction to it? Which wouldn't really make sense because these are animatronics, right? Or at this point maybe they were already possessed, which led to the child possessing Foxy to discover the 5 victims. And then maybe that gave William a sense of power, or he liked his reaction. I don't know. And at 6, FNAF Plus. The Fazbear Fanverse Initiative is a program created by Scott Cawthon that gives popular fan game creators the chance to have their games reach a wider audience and be backed by Scott Cawthon himself, helping them with merch, distribution, and console ports in some cases. However, one of the games in this program is FNAF Plus, a reimagining/fan remake of the first game, with new assets, new models, and coding. The trailers make it seem way more intense and scary than the original, and it has a lot of implications for this universe. First off, it's not the same Freddy's we know, but since games like Five Nights at Candy's have connections to the FNAF restaurant, they appear to need to have one to fill that story. So this is kinda pushing them away from the main FNAF canon. But it also has implications with one of the other games, Joy of Creation's Ignited Collection, since in Joy of Creation you play as Scott Cawthon, or the creator of the FNAF series, who's on the run from the animatronics. Which makes me think that maybe this is the universe that Help Wanted was referring to when they said a rogue indie game dev created games to make fun of the situation. Maybe the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative games are those games, and this is the aftermath of the series ending? Halfway through it at number 5, Multiverse. This also basically canonically inserts a FNAF multiverse into the franchise, which was already the case thanks to the several book series, but also opens the door to various other timelines. Like, what if what we've been seeing isn't one timeline, but multiple? And this means that, technically, every single FNAF theory has been correct in one universe. In one universe, Phone Guy is Purple Guy. In another, Scott Cawthon is the name of the indie game developer. In one universe, I am guaranteed to be right with my theories, but that also means that every single person, no matter how outlandish the theory is, will be right at some point in one of the FNAF universes. And that's pretty cool, but also freaky. What if it's revealed that from FNAF 2 to now, all the games took place in the Fanverse, since Freddy from FNAF 2, not Toy Freddy, but like normal Freddy, I guess normal, and the FNAF Plus Freddy look fairly similar. Uh-oh, I can feel the hate comments coming. And at 4, Hanging Scientists. The Sister Location hanging scientists weren't there before they were revealed to us. It's meant to show us that Ennard is able to and willing to kill anything getting in his way. But that means that there were other people working there while we were there during Sister Location. I don't know why though, since it was literally filled with deadly animatronics. And the only reason we were sent there was to put her back together, like William had somehow asked us to do. But like, why were there others there? Was the business still running? Is that what Chica's party world was? We know they were renting out animatronics, but why were there so many remaining? I thought they had stopped, especially when they were only used for one day. Like, I mean, we know why Baby wasn't rented, but the others? I don't know. It's weird, but I guess I'm not here to judge how someone runs their business. Getting close to the end in a number 3 8-bit canon. The 8-bit minigames are very confusing. Shout out to Tessa, one of our editors, for this idea. She edits most of the FNAF videos and apparently they make her want to play the game, so all I have to say is good luck. But she mentioned how weird these minigames are, and up until this point I did really forget about that. Having to glitch through a wall in order to give the spirit of a kid cake so that you can ultimately release all their souls in the real world to get the good ending. Like, what? That means that those 8-bit minigames have to be canon, but also real. Like, how do these games actually present themselves in real life? There's no way that we as Shadow Bonnie are just flying around breaking into pieces, or are they in their own universe and are able to cross over at will? And if we can do the same by playing these, does that mean we're dead as well? Oh wait, sorry, that works too much with my Michael is both crying child and Foxy Bro theory, so people are gonna get mad. I'll stop. Hashtag not salty. Not salty at all. Penultimately in a number 2, Forgetting Baby. One of Baby's most famous lines is, "I guess you forgot about me," which she says to William during Ultimate Custom Night. At least from my understanding it's a famous line, or an important one to say the least, since this implies a whole bunch of things right off the bat. Instantly we get confirmation that Elizabeth is William Afton's daughter, since she wouldn't be saying this to a complete stranger. I mean, I guess it was also confirmed that she was his daughter in Sister Location. When Michael said I did it, I put her back together. But like, more confirmation is always good. And as well, this proves that William just ditched his daughter. Sure, he didn't forget about her since he sent Michael to go and put her back together, but he also didn't go see her. He gets burnt in FNAF 6, but until that point he hadn't even been in the same room as his daughter. So she must be pretty pissed, hence why she's one of his enemies while in a coma. This could also mean that he regrets not being able to see her and that he actually does care about her, since these would all be manifestations of William's subconscious. Meaning that any theory about William hating his daughter because maybe she killed the mother during childbirth or something similar are confirmed wrong, since he clearly loved her and regrets what happened and how he couldn't see her. Finally, in at number 1, Fazbear Fright's Connection. The Fazbear Frights books have been the foundation for a load of FNAF theories as of late, mostly because we aren't getting to see any really new security breach trailers, probably up until the game actually drops at this point, but this ended up causing a lot of division in the community, since most people don't think the books have anything to do with the games, especially in the case of the original novels. However, I'd like to direct your attention to a post made by Scott Cawthon announcing the Fazbear Frights books, where he said that the books will help solve mysteries or issues we've had in the series. So it's 100% allowed to create a theory for the story of the games based on evidence from a Fazbear Frights book. Not only that, but while the games may not be directly connected to the original novels, they are from the same brain as the games, therefore will share similarities. So it's really just ignorant to disregard those as well. I'm gonna get hate for this video anyway, so I might as well say it. Thank you for coming to my Fred Talk number 2.
And in 10, a gift to relish. What a gift to relish. A victim that can't perish is one of Nightmare Freddy's voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night. However, we originally used this as a way to prove that William was in hell, but now, with the release of The Man in Room 1280 from Fazbear Fright's book In the Flesh, we know that William was only in a coma while this game was taking place, making this a subtle reference to how William always comes back. The soul of one of his victims that was keeping him alive in order for him to suffer, and now they could do that even more with him in a coma. Does this make the one who possessed him the one that you should not have killed? And if that is the case, and the one you should not have killed isn't Cassidy, who is it? And if Cassidy was the one that was keeping William alive, instead of 2 spirits possessing Golden Freddy, could it be 1 spirit possessing 2 things? A person and the suit. We know that the one you should not have killed is special and incredibly angry, so their agony would be extremely powerful, probably the most powerful. Could this be what Scott was hinting at this whole time? Probably not, if I'm being honest. And at 9, Nothing to Lose. The Shadow Fears Me is one of Nightmare's Ultimate Custom Night deathlines. However, Nightmare is a representation of William's wickedness, and since William is the purple guy who is meant to represent a shadow, and Nightmare represents death,
that would mean that William fears death, which makes sense, especially when 2 of his kids were killed by things he made. But what happens after he no longer feels that sense of horror once he's accepted death? I mean, we see it happen in The Man in Room 1280, where he asks to be taken to a Fazbear warehouse so that he can die. So why is that meaningful? Because once you accept death as an inevitability, you have nothing to lose. And the scariest thing isn't animatronic murder or being eaten alive by nightmare versions of characters that used to be your friends, it's a man with nothing to lose, because no matter what, you can't get any lower. It's honestly one of the scariest things in life. And once William no longer feared death, he was able to ascend in a sense, transferring his consciousness into a hard drive and becoming basically immortal. So yeah, that's pretty damn terrifying. And it ate speeches. Telling a story comes with its own pressures and expectations. Mr. Hippo here is right, it does. We expect everything to lead somewhere, every tiny detail to mean something, and if it doesn't, we feel kinda robbed, I guess. But we're going to nitpick the hell out of these speeches, so I guess we haven't learned our lesson, have we? Why are these speeches about telling stories? Mr. Hippo, in my opinion, is Scott's stand-in in game. He uses Mr. Hippo to speak to us, and more or less MatPat, about trying to find every little detail in the series to find out the whole story. And honestly, we already knew that. But he keeps saying that not everything has meaning, and that there's no bigger story. What if that's true? What if there is no bigger story here and we're just connecting things that don't actually connect? Each game could be its own universe for all we know, and Scott could just be telling us outright through these speeches. He also says something that I've been saying for a while, that we shouldn't believe every theory we hear or treat them as fact and start assuming, because we may assume the wrong thing, which is what I've been saying whenever someone says that one of my theories isn't right because another theory has proved me wrong. Like, they're both just theories. Game theories. And we should just enjoy the series. And that's what Mr. Hippo is trying to say too. Maybe Mr. Hippo is supposed to be me. And it's 7, corruption. The ultimate custom night voice lines are very useful for these lists. And while going over all of them, I noticed a distinct difference between pre and post FNAF 6 animatronics, particularly from Baby and the Puppet, since those are the only ones that were in both. Since the normal versions of both Baby and the Puppet say things like, "Seeing you powerless is like music to me," and "I guess you forgot about me." But as soon as we get to the FNAF 6 scrapped and trapped versions, we get things that are much darker, with lines like, "Time for your controlled shock," and "Let's see how many pieces I can cut you into from Scrap Baby," and "I've been looking for you, and now I will never let you go," along with "It will all be over soon" from Lefty, which is Charlotte's voice, but softer, calmer, and whispering, which makes it hella creepy. Considering how even though these kids are dead, they're still relatively positive about William's undoing, so much so that they can stay relatively positive and upbeat. But once he's escaped so many times, they finally break and start losing their optimism, resulting in darker views and more aggressive death lines, which is honestly one of the darker things in the series to me. These kids get corrupted even after being optimistic after their death, which is horrifying to see. And once you notice, you can't unsee it. That's really sad. And in 6, Markiplier could be canon. Did everyone else forget that Markiplier was in the launch trailer for Special Delivery, or was it just me? Because while reading up on the game looking for clues, it was listed right there in the trivia section. However, apparently it's unknown to even Markiplier himself if his inclusion in the trailer makes him canon. However, this would make him canon in my mind. Since Scott has made MatPat canon, I'm sure Markiplier's inclusion makes him canon as well. So yeah, we're all out here thinking that MatPat's canonicity could mean plenty of things for the series, but Markiplier is canon too. But that begs the question, who is he? Obviously he isn't the YouTuber Markiplier since he's working for the Fazbear Entertainment Company, but he has to be someone, right? Well, this may be a wild theory, but hear me out. What if he's William Afton? The guy is wearing a suit with a red cracked tie and is frequently placed in front of blue and purple backgrounds. Not only that, but he is also the last person we see before we see the first animatronic in the trailer, Springtrap. I know that at this point in the timeline, William Afton would be dead and possessing Vanny, but what if he recorded all of this beforehand? What if he had planned for all of this before the spring locking? It's doubtful, but a possibility. This could also be Markiplier playing Michael Afton, who could have been asked to film this while working at one of the previous locations since he looked so much like his father. But remember, before being cut off by a glitch, Markiplier says, "We're always watching out for you." And the first line William says in the trailer, I'm watching it. Halfway through number 5, special delivery game. We know that Scott's in-universe stand-in created games based on the events in the Fazbear restaurants, but we don't know what those games are. Some think the 8-bit mini-games, others think the FNAF 6 mini-games. I think it could be Security Breach, but what about special delivery? Well, we learn in Fazbear Frights the Man in Room 1280 that everyone knows what William did, and they hate him for it. So much so that they actually try to smother him while he's in a coma in the hospital. So why would they sell a Springtrap mini pack for 2.5 thousand Faz coins in special delivery? Isn't that just sensationalizing the guy that killed all those kids? Cause like, this pack gives the player a Springtrap plush suit for Endo, 3 Springtrap lures, and nobody seems to bat an eye. They even include other versions of Springtrap, like the poison one, who's purple for God's sake. So why on earth would that happen? Why would Fazbear Entertainment let that happen, especially if they were trying to rebuild their rep? If these are meant to be real animatronics going to people's houses, that's a horrible idea. However, they aren't. It's simply a game that was made by Scott Cawthon in-universe, meant to sensationalize and earn money off multiple tragedies. That's pretty messed up if you ask me. Also, I know it's not Scott, it's just he used his picture, but like, he has no name yet, so I'm calling him Scott, okay? And at 4, who is Vanny? We know that the main antagonist of the next game, Security Breach, will be Vanny, the reluctant follower of William Afton, whose normal version is most likely Vanessa, the security guard from promotional material. However, how did Vanny get possessed? Was she originally Tape Girl? Because if she was, why are the pieces of Glitch Trap still separated in FNAF VR? In Help Wanted, we need to collect all 16 tapes in order for Glitch Trap to attack us, so we can potentially beat the game by losing to him. So if Tape Girl had already done that, or tried to at least, why are those tapes still separate? Wouldn't they still be together in the tape room? It's not like William would have made her split them up again, or even let her do that if she tried. So who does that leave? Us. We're the ones who collect the tapes. We're the ones who lose to Glitch Trap. And no matter what you identify as, you aren't yourself in that game. You're whoever is testing the game. It's not going to be you yourself. It's going to be the protagonist that Scott intended. And who is that? Vanny. We are Vanessa. We get possessed, and now we need to help ourselves break free of William's control in the next game. Things are about to get messy, and I'm saying that about FNAF. So you know that this is going to be a show. It's already messy now. Oh, just you wait. And at 3, Lefty. Lefty, as we know, is an acronym for an animatronic meant to lure, encapsulate, fuse, transport, and extract the puppet and bring it to the FNAF 6 location. However, thanks to Ultimate Custom Night, we now know that there is room for more than just the puppet inside of Lefty, since when killed by Lefty, you can hear it say things like, "Shh, there is room for one more," and "come spend eternity inside with me," along with "I'm so glad I found you, now let me make some room for you," which heavily indicates that maybe Lefty was also meant to capture William if he didn't make his way back on his own, since the order of salvaging is Molten Freddy, Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, and then Lefty. So Henry could have just sent Lefty a command to come back once he got word that William had been salvaged, since Michael would have had to let him know as instructed in paragraph 4 of his contract. So Lefty could have been made to get both the puppet, also known as Charlotte, and William, forcing William to confront one of his first victims, and the one that started his undoing. Another one that he should not have killed, dare I say. Another one, not the actual one, chill out. Penultimately, in at number 2, Canon. Nightmare On was added in FNAF 4's Halloween DLC, along with Night Mangle and Nightmare Balloon Boy. Night Mangle's my version of Nightmare Mangle. However, Scott only deemed Nightmare Balloon Boy canon. The other 2 were labeled as non-canon. But if that's truly the case, why does Nightmare On show up in Ultimate Custom Night? Same thing with Nightmare Mangle. Why are these characters included in Ultimate Custom Night if they weren't meant to actually have these characters in universe? This doesn't really make sense to me, since this was a big help with MatPat determining the timeline, since we knew that in FNAF 4 Crying Child didn't know who the puppet or Mangle was yet, and because, you know, FNAF 2 location. But now they're fully canon? Or was it just that he saw them but didn't know why? And from that, this opens up so many doors and questions. Was it really Crying Child's mind that caused these hallucinations, or did William design them? If he did, why did he add stomach mouths? And why include animatronics your kid hasn't even seen yet, or may not even exist yet? Why is this a thing? Okay, how can this work with the way that we currently understand the timeline? We don't even understand the timeline. Are these characters canon, or when they were added, was it a glimpse into the future? Is this the start of the multiverse? I can't do this anymore. Finally, in at number 1, game theory is canon. A huge shout out to the user SockGems in the comments of the last part of this list for this little Easter egg. While I talked about MatPat being canon in the series last time, SockGems pointed out that he already was thanks to Fetch, the first book in the series. Since a classmate says the signature line of "that's just a theory," and the book says that he said it just like his favorite YouTuber. That means that even before In the Flesh, the YouTube channel of Game Theory was canon, and that means he's making theories about video games. And since we know that there are video games about what took place at Fazbear restaurants in the FNAF universe, does that mean that MatPat in that universe is making theories about the in-universe FNAF games, like how he makes theories about the FNAF universe in the real world? Because that's a mind that I was not expecting. And since I've only read the book In the Flesh, I did not know about this. So thank you, SockGems. And I love the name, by the way. And at 10, Endoskeleton. The excuse we get in the original FNAF game as to why the animatronics are attacking us is because we look like a naked endoskeleton and they want to put us in a suit because it's against company policy. First of all, why would you program animatronics in a pizzeria to try and enforce company policy, especially at night? And why would they directly come after us if that's the excuse? Like, why would they come all the way to the security room? But the main issue is, why aren't they attacking the naked endoskeleton, sometimes visible in the storage room? Bonnie will sometimes even go into the storeroom while the endoskeleton is in there, but nothing. Why is it that it will attack us, but not it? It's also violating company policy, isn't it? I mean, maybe because it's in the storage room it's fine, but then again, why wouldn't we make our way there because it would be safe, and why wouldn't they tell us about that? The explanation we came up with is because we look like William Afton since we think we play as Michael. But if we go off my theory that we play as Henry since Michael may not have been old enough, that doesn't make sense. Plus, even if it's because we look like William, that doesn't explain. And at number 9, why Phone Guy? If the animatronics are really after us because we look like the man who killed them, why do they attack Phone Guy? And why do they kill him on night 4? This is what originally made us think that Purple Guy was the Phone Guy, since this seems to mimic what we see in the FNAF 3 minigames where we see William get spring locked. But Scott confirmed that that wasn't true in the Ultimate Custom Night April Fool's update, so why did they attack Phone Guy? Is Phone Guy actually Michael Afton and he doesn't actually die? Or do the animatronics get some form of code update before we become the night guard so they aren't attacking because we look like an endoskeleton in an effort to avoid what happened to Phone Guy happening again? Because a lot of good that did. You went and hired someone who looked exactly like their killer. Smooth move, bro. And at 8, how did Baby get ejected? So we know that between the events of Sister Location and FNAF 6 that Baby and the rest of Ennard get into a lover's spat and then Baby gets kicked out of Ennard. But like, how does that work, really? They were all tangled together, right? So did they just remove the parts that were Baby and then kick her to the curb? Or did they just remove her soul and place it into another endoskeleton? If they did that, how did that work? Like, how did the actual process of ejecting work? It's really confusing to me because she ends up getting a whole new body and Molten Freddy is left as basically a puddle of parts, but then he grabs a Freddy face and calls it okay. Like, what the hell happened for that to work? It's so confusing and it's unexplained, it's mysterious. I know that they had a fight and I know that she got kicked out, but how did they actually physically remove her from the Ennard tribe, I guess? Scott, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? And at 7, Lorekeeper ending. I talked about the FNAF 2 minigames in another video or list, but what I'm really wondering now is about the FNAF 6 minigames, Fruity Maze, Security Puppet, and Midnight Motorist. These games, while not a big part of the game, are required to be beaten for the Lorekeeper ending, meaning that they would have lore significance. I mean, they obviously do, because we learn a lot from them, but how and why are these secrets hidden inside? The Fruity Maze ends up gory and trailing blood, with William Afton and presumably Susie in the reflection. But like, how can we see the reflection if we're the ones playing? Security Puppet recounts the origin of the puppet and how Henry's daughter Charlotte died. And Midnight Motorist recounts later that night, after William had killed Charlotte and returns home. But how did these little secrets get put into the game? Was it Henry? Was it someone who knew the story of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Are these the games that were made by a rogue indie game developer? And are these games even real? Or are these sections just hallucinations or memories and they don't actually exist within the game? Are we just having flashbacks or is this all real time? I don't know. And it scares me. And at 6, why is Purple Guy smiling? The Foxy Go 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 mini game was another piece of evidence for the Phone Guy is Purple Guy theory, since Phone Guy loves Foxy, and in this game we can see Foxy run out to a group of dead kids where Purple Guy is smiling beforehand. But since we know Purple Guy isn't the Phone Guy, why is he smiling? Is it a coincidence and he likes Foxy too? Like, Scott wouldn't do that, right? Or is it just that William is pleased with watching Foxy find another set of missing kids? There is no clear-cut answer anymore, and that's just honestly concerning. Like, there has to be a reason, right? Or is this just so old now that we can or have to ignore it? Since Scott knows the story he wants to tell now, like Matt had said in his video about the full timeline. Or is this still of significance that we need to keep in mind when looking at everything in the future? Is it because Foxy was the last of the 5 missing kids to die, so William had developed a style and had gotten comfortable at that point, so he was proud of it? Were those 5 kids killed in the same way that Fritz, the spirit that possesses Foxy, was? I don't know. Halfway through number 5, where's the puppet? The animatronic known as Lefty was designed as a mechanism to capture the puppet, and does so prior to its appearance in FNAF 6. However, when Lefty jump scares you in both FNAF 6 and Ultimate Custom Night, we can't seem to see the rest of the puppet inside Lefty other than the arms. Realistically, the puppet's face should be in Lefty's head, but it's not. In fact, Lefty has something blocking the bottom of its head, like, you know, the rest of its skull, making it separate and a sealed piece. So, what the hell? Where did the rest of the puppet go? Is it inside the body compressed? Because the proportions, if it's not compressed, are all wrong, unless it got damaged in the FNAF 3 fire, which caused it to shrivel, since we know that the puppet was there. Which would have been a terrifying animatronic, so it sucks that we didn't get to see that. But still, I doubt Henry would have let his daughter's vessel get compressed inside of Lefty. So what the hell is going on here, and where's the rest of the puppet? And at 4, what brought him back? We all know that William makes his way to the FNAF 6 location first out of all the animatronics, but how? It's not like he got an email saying, "Hey, my old pal William, how about you come to this new Fazbear location that your kid opened? It's gonna have plenty of potential victims." And he didn't get a flyer sent to him, so how was he called back to this location? How were any of them called back, really? I know that he could have brought Lefty back because he had programmed her, but what made William, Molten Freddy, and Baby come back? Was it similar to the green bracelet for the puppet? Or was it playing those sounds like in FNAF 3 or in the vents in this game? How close did they have to be for them to hear it? Is it some sort of circuit thing that he could activate inside the animatronics with a remote? We don't know, and I really want to. Getting close to the end in number 3, investigation. I talked about the police and how nobody seemed to bat an eye in a previous part, but I want to be more specific and find the real reason the police didn't investigate more. We know they did investigate thanks to the phone guy calls and Juniors from Midnight Motorist, but why didn't they investigate the smelly, oozing animatronics? The bodies were in there and they would know to investigate, especially when the place got shut down because the animatronics started oozing and leaking mucus and blood. Blood! How do you not look into that? Are you telling me there wasn't one single cop who didn't find that suspicious? There is no way the cops would have put 5 missing children's cases to bed that quickly. Yeah, the first 48 hours of a murder investigation are the most crucial, same thing with missing persons, but they don't usually give up after those 2 days. It's so weird and it makes me think that William had to have someone in his pocket. That's the only really questionable thing that I'm really stuck on. Like, why didn't they check the bloody suits? It makes 0 sense from any perspective. And at 2, in-universe games. Thanks to Help Wanted, we learned about a series of games that were made by an in-universe version of Scott Cawthon. This guy supposedly made the games out of the situation and ruined the reputation of the company. However, we then hear Tape Girl say that Fazbear Entertainment paid Scott to make these games. But we've heard so much about these games, but don't know what these games are. Some people think that it's the FNAF 2 minigames, others think the FNAF 6 minigames. There is a possibility that Security Breach is one of them, or FNAF AR, but we don't have a serious answer. Nothing is confirmed, and it's a big issue. Also, I know that it's not actually Scott, but he doesn't have a name yet, so I'm just gonna call him Scott. He used his own picture, it's what he gets. What do you think the in-universe games are? Do you think that we've seen them, or do you think we have yet to find one in-game? Let me know below, because I'm very confused and might need some help. Finally, in at number 1, Glitch Trap. Glitchtrap is the main antagonist of Help Wanted, and is William Afton's consciousness in the form of computer code, thanks to his agony allowing him to possess a hard drive at the end of the Man in Room 1280 from the Fazbear Frights book in the flesh, that then gets scanned to help make the AI in Help Wanted. But he was never meant to be in the game. However, for someone who was never meant to be in the game, he has a huge impact on the final minigame. He doesn't make any appearances in other games, but he shows up in Pizza Party at the final scene, and is present while we were all inside the Fazbear costume. He dances on the floor in front of us while we're stuck singing a song, but how is he able to do that? How does he open the curtain? How does he put us in the suit and then dance around happy that he did it? He wasn't meant to exist, so how can he interact with a virtual world? We can't even move the curtain if we manage to break the boundaries and touch it, so if our hands pass through it, why don't his? We were meant to be in the game. He wasn't. And how is he able to make a whole stage for himself when he attacks us? It doesn't make any sense, unless he was meant to exist in the first place. Minute 10, the power of love. The immense agony generated when you hear me sing. The immense agony generated when you get killed is the fuel behind how possession works in the FNAF universe. This makes you think, if agony is the most powerful emotion in this world, what do the other emotions do? Or rather, where are the other emotions ranked? If agony lets you possess animatronics among other things upon death, what would emotions like anger and love do? And what is the second most powerful emotion? How far does it radiate? Do all emotions just allow you to possess things, just other emotions are less likely to do so? Like, how does it work? I want to shout out the YouTube user that left the comments on this video that brought this to my attention, but I can't find that comment for a second time. So, I don't know if it was deleted, but if this was you who left the comment on the previous Tiny Details video, thank you so much. These things are getting really hard because I'm running out of details and I'm relying so much more on the comments section. So if you have any tiny details I have yet to talk about, please, I cannot stress this enough, leave it below. It doesn't even have to be, it doesn't even have to have like bigger implications. Okay, just something that's small, just please. Thank you for your help. In a 9 hiding place. Throughout Sister Location, we're constantly being talked to by Baby. At first, she wants to help us, at least it seems that way, and then we get scooped. But before that, she mentions that someone crafted one of the cupboards into a hiding place, but who did that? Was it one of the technicians? Was it the man from the Fazbear Frights book? I mean, I don't think it would have been because he kind of got stuffed with mini Renas. And I mean, the technicians are killed at the end of the game, but were they freshly filleted or were they there the whole time, only being revealed when a light was shining on them? Who knows, really? Maybe it was Baby who made that hole so we would trust her, or maybe it was William hiding from the wrath of his daughter. I mean, she had to be mad at him, right? Why else would she be haunting him in Ultimate Custom Night? Sure, he regrets what happened, but she surely blames him for the situation that she's kind of stuck in. She was clearly in agony since, you know, she possessed Baby, and William was 100% avoiding her. I mean, you don't just get shut in a room and not be avoiding your daughter, right? Parents know. And it is shadow animatronics. The shadow animatronics really don't have an explanation, even after all these years. We still just have a couple of ideas as to what these are. Some think that Crying Child is Shadow Freddy, others think that they're employees that ended up getting killed, either by the animatronics, William, or the Springlock suits. Since the two shadow animatronics are Freddy and Bonnie, who we know have Springlock variants in the games thanks to the phone guy dialogue. But where did these shadow animatronics come from and where did they go? Cotton Eye Joe. Did we release them? Are they still after us? Were they ever really hostile? The whole shadow animatronic situation was kind of forgotten over the years, and while it may not be an important detail, it's still something I'm curious about and I still want to answer. It's an active virus. We know that William is a virus at the moment. After dying in the Man in Room 1280, he possesses a hard drive that gets scanned into FNAF VR Help Wanted. We also know the virus gets uploaded to Special Delivery thanks to the Special Delivery emails and the aggressive nature of what was supposed to be nice animatronics. However, why did the virus get uploaded? Who uploaded it? Well, thanks to the emails we aren't supposed to see, we learned that Vanny, the antagonist of the upcoming Security Breach game, is the one who's uploaded the virus, and I mean it makes sense. She's a follower of Afton, even if it's reluctant. However, with the various versions of Springtrap in the game, could this virus be to blame for them? Especially Toxic Springtrap, who is the signature purple of the infamous purple guy who occupies the suit. Was Toxic Springtrap the original attempt to escape the video game world? I mean, the AR game is the closest we've gotten to having FNAF animatronics in real life, and Scott isn't one to be afraid of being meta. I mean, he was the final boss of FNAF World after all. So could William's real plan to be to escape into our world? And would that tie in with the new Joy of Creation Ignited collection that Scott is helping to fund? Since in that game you play as Scott Cawthon and the animatronics are coming after you in the real world. I don't know, it seems possible. And at 6, Ballora glasses. In the Fazbear Fright story of Room for One More, we see a girl steal a pair of glasses that show her a dancing Ballora when she puts them on. It starts off sweet, but as we know, these animatronics don't mess around. Eventually, Ballora starts getting closer, basically just coming in for a kill, and in an effort to atone, the girl returns the glasses to their owner, only to have her daughter get caught by Ballora. The actual story though isn't important, so if I messed it up, please forgive me. What I'm really looking at here are the glasses. These glasses help this girl see Ballora when nobody else can. And this reminds me of something that we've experienced in the games, the Nightmare animatronics. Could it be that instead of the illusion sound discs that we've been thinking caused the Nightmare animatronics, that it was actually these glasses? And yes, I said Nightmare sound discs intentionally because I saw a comment that said please say just illusion discs. So no, illusion sound discs. You can't tell me what to do. Scott himself said that these stories would help us solve things from the games. So what if Crying Child was wearing these glasses and that's how he saw the nightmares? It would explain why he wouldn't call for help because he knew that nobody else could see them. And I doubt that they would have put on the glasses if he had asked. Plus, it would also explain why Michael knows what the Nightmare animatronics look like as an alternate explanation to my he's a robot crying child theory, which I'm sure plenty of you want at this point. Halfway through and in number 5, Disassembled. In FNAF 1, we only had 5 animatronics to worry about, and no convoluted story. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Golden Freddy was our cast of characters, compared to the over 50 that appear in Ultimate Custom Night. However, even out of all 50 plus, Golden Freddy is still the most interesting and mysterious. In the first game, he had no endoskeleton. He seemed to just be a floppy suit with 2 glowing eyes that somehow was able to teleport through walls, and some believed to be able to cause hallucinations like the infamous "It's Me" text and "Eyeless Bonnie," along with changing posters on the wall and generating news articles that show us more lore. But how? And why? Why is he so limp? The amount of jokes I could make for that. Is his endoskeleton the one in the storage room? And why was it removed in the first place? Was it for cleaning or something? Because let's be honest, if the animatronics are leaking mucus and blood and smell like death and don't get washed, I doubt that they'll be cleaning Golden Freddy. Something that it's because he caused the bite of 87, but there is evidence for other characters as well, and nothing has been confirmed. So, why? And at 4, Glitch. Continuing on Golden Freddy, how does he have these powers? How can he move in and out of the office at will, basically moving through walls and causing weird hallucinations that give us issues for 7 years? Yet we still don't know how it's possible. This should, in reality, be incredibly hard to do, if not impossible, because even in the FNAF world, this kind of thing is hard. Is this what the other emotions can do, or is this agony stretching so far that they can move through solid objects and hide from our vision? Why have we not tried to figure this out? We kind of just accepted that he can do this, and then we moved on. Like, what the actual hell is this little freaking goddamn golden bear? Is he a bear? Yeah, he's a bear. Like, he can just come in and out whenever he wants, crash us to the desktop, and then laugh as we have to reboot it like he just loaded Skyrim for the 40,000th time without mods. Like, where did this man come from? And at 3, hallucinations. The hallucinations from FNAF 1 are their own story too. Where did they come from? Is it Golden Freddy? If it is, why do we need to see them, or why do we see them in the first place? Are they actual newspaper articles, or are we just fully hallucinating? Is this real life, or is this just a fantasy? Caught in a landslide, escape Golden Freddy. But seriously, why are we seeing these things other than it being important to the mystery of the game? Is there something more going on here that we haven't discovered yet? Is Golden Freddy the one changing these articles and posters, or are we somehow doing it ourselves? These hallucinations, or whatever they are, have some sort of explanation behind them. I just need to know what that explanation is. In a 2, Scene in the Shadows. During MatPat's Big FNAF livestream during the FNAF 4 days, he ended up getting clues from Scott Cawthon himself via the Scott Games or FNAF World website, I can't remember which one. One referencing Chica's beak, one talking about 4 games, 1 story, and then one saying what is seen in shadows is often misunderstood in the mind of a child. And since Scott has since debunked Dream Theory, what did this mean? Did he originally intend on Dream Theory being the correct answer, then changed his mind? Because, you know, that's pretty Scott? Or is there still some validity to this clue that we haven't explored yet? I mean, we originally assumed it was the scene where Purple Guy puts a head on a coworker in a suit, but is this referencing something else now? Did Crying Child see Elizabeth get scooped in the shadows, making it really look like there was a stomach mouth and some weird alien tongue that grabbed her? Hence the stomach mouths on the nightmare animatronics? Or did he just see it directly and that's why they're there, and this is referencing something completely different? I mean, it would make sense, but Sister Location hadn't come out yet, right? I don't know anymore. My brain hurts. Finally, in number 1, Henry's death. There are currently 2 deaths that we know of for the character we know as Henry. One's in the FNAF 6 fire, where he stays while it burns so nobody will remember this place, but also once in FNAF World, where he gets killed by Baby. However, if he died in the FNAF 6 fire along with Baby, how did he die in the FNAF World cutscene? There seems to be a simple explanation. Actually, they are the same thing. That room that Henry was in that cutscene must have been a room in the FNAF 6 building that we just didn't know about. Maybe the safe room that we heard so much about until FNAF 3 when we just forgot about it. That scene was basically a flash forward to the FNAF 6 location, even if we didn't know it at the time, where Baby kills Henry before they're both engulfed in flames. She either killed him due to rage or the fact that Henry called her Elizabeth. Or cut her off in the ending, because yeah, that would make me go nuts too.
And be full.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed.
In its 10 animatronic bite, we all know the story of FNAF 4's 8-bit minigames and cutscenes, where Crying Child ends up getting chomped in the mouth of the Fredbear animatronic thanks to his older brother and his friends putting him in there. I proposed a different idea that not many people seem to appreciate, but thanks to the comments of one Thanos Snap on a previous part, it helped me realize, how did Fredbear manage to crush Crying Child's skull enough to put him in a coma? We originally believed that it was due to a spring lock failure since we saw someone wearing the suit in a previous part, but what we forgot about is that while on stage, Fredbear isn't in suit mode, it's an animatronic, so the spring locks were already all in place, and there wouldn't be any way that it should be able to crush his skull, and the chomping force of the mouth is going to have to be way over regulation to be able to cause the amount of damage we see, and if the suit was capable of that, nobody would wear it. There is no feasible explanation that allows what we see on screen to be the actual scenario where Crying Child dies, so how did this actually happen? And does this go to only further enhance my explanation of this scene? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and maybe we can work this out together. And at 9, Paper Pals. The Paper Pals are a group of paper plate versions of our favorite animatronics. Well, a couple of them. In FNAF 2, we can see paper plate versions of Bonnie, Freddy, and a human-looking one that might possibly be Balloon Boy. And while these may be crafts made by kids at the restaurant, or they might sell kits for you to be able to make these at home, where did the originals come from and how can they move? In FNAF 2, the human-like Paper Pal can actually move from Cam 4, where it's originally found, into the office. And in FNAF 3, the 3 Paper Pals can do the same thing, using this teleporting mechanic seemingly at random. How can they do this? How can paper cutouts teleport between rooms? Is it a hallucination or something else? I don't know, and it terrifies me. Imagine all the paper cuts this thing would give if it jump scared you. Ow. Tail Trap. This was mentioned in the comments of one of the Funtime Foxy Facts lists by a user that I could not find the comment of twice, so I apologize. I really need to take note of this stuff. Anyway, the comment suggested that Funtime Foxy's tail could be where its containment chamber for the kids is collected. You know, like the containment chamber for the kids would be in its tail, which is an interesting idea, and it would give a reason as to why Foxy all of a sudden got a tail in Sister Location, but the beginning of the tail is so small that it would have to really squish the kid down to the size of like a Toblerone bar before actually getting to the wider part, so it's unlikely, but still something to think about. And at 7, Charlie. The original FNAF novel trilogy had a big plot twist at the end. In the FNAF novel The Fourth Closet, it's revealed that the main protagonist, Charlie, was actually the third in a series of 4 robots that were a recreation of Henry's daughter, who was killed at an early point in her life. However, the final version was incomplete and could also switch between looking like a real human, so much so that another character wanted to make Whoopi with them, to looking like Baby, you know, like the actual Baby animatronic, thanks to pins located around Baby's body like we see in the games. I've used this as evidence for another theory before, but we've never stopped to really ask how she's able to look so realistic. And it's a big point, because this is the same argument people use to try and debunk my theory. How does the skin work? In the novels, it's revealed that she actually has fake blood, which makes sense since, you know, if you get cut and you don't bleed, someone's gonna get suspicious. I hope. Which means the skin should be able to bruise. But where did this technology come from? It's so realistic, someone wants to see all of it, yet it's still fake. How is this possible? But more so, it also helps in my theory proving that my scenario is entirely plausible. I'm not moving from my stance that Michael Afton, or the Big Brother, in the games is a robot version of Crying Child created after Crying Child dies. In whatever happened, because obviously what we see isn't actually what happened. Because, like, there's no way Fred Bear chopped it. In its sixth fourth child. A lot of people seem to fixate on Clara from Sister Location's Immortal and the Rest list for a proxy for Mrs. Afton, the mother of the Afton kids, since she talks to a vampire meant to represent William, whose name is Vlad. However, the theme of the show is Vlad constantly denying that the baby is his. Clara, the baby isn't mine, even though the baby can turn into a bat and sleeps hanging upside down. But what if there is more to that than just being a proxy for William's wife? Because I doubt Clara would be the name of the character and the name of the mother if William's character is named Vlad. What if this is secretly revealing that William has a fourth child? One that hasn't met a terrible fate yet. One that perhaps William didn't believe was his when his wife told him. So much so that he divorced her on the grounds that she cheated and he got the kids. A simple paternity test would reveal that he is the father, but he could claim that they were faked, like how Vlad denies the child being his, even though it's literally a vampire. And William is well connected, so bringing a trial would be easy cheese. He has to be well connected to not have been, like, actually, like, thrown in prison. There has to be something going on. Now, who could this secret child be? This may be a stretch, but what about Gregory? Unless we go off my theory that in FNAF 1 and 2 we play as Henry, we've only played as characters of the Afton family until FNAF VR potentially. So what if the fourth child is the one we play as in Security Breach, and that's why Vanny is trying to capture him? Or more realistically, what if Vanessa is the child, and that's how William was able to take control of their mind? They're related. Only time will tell. How about do it at number 5, Premonition? Now, I'm not talking about real psychic powers here, but what if the ending of Security Breach was pointed out to us way before even Sister Location was released? That's right, I'm talking about FNAF 4, baby! The stomach mouths of the animatronics is always assumed to be because Crying Child saw Elizabeth get scooped. But what if it was really foreshadowing the events of games to come? We know that Gregory will hide inside Glamrock Freddy. Perhaps while we're in there in first person, we will watch ourselves get crushed, helpless. That would be fun. However, I want Chica to be the one to step on me. I mean crush me. Yeah. Crush me. And then for Gregory, continuing on Security Breach, what connection does Gregory have with anyone else in this game? I mean, he could be the fourth child, it's unlikely but possible in a way, but how on earth does he have a watch that connects to the security cameras of the place? Does he get it in the security room? And who would leave a piece of tech that would be so useful to anyone they're trying to stop out in the open? Like, ripe for the taking. Was it Vanessa? Does she know she's compromised? I mean, she does in Special Delivery, but is Ness the Vanessa we're thinking of, or is it just a name meant to confuse us? Because Scott's done that before. I don't know anymore. I'm sad. Take the multiple uses of the name Jeremy. What is that, dude? And 3, Special Delivery. The animatronics from Special Delivery were supposed to be friendly, basically being a nice way for the company to rebuild their image. But then, they send out angry animatronics that try and kill you. Why did they think that was a good idea? And I get that they were hacked by the Afton virus, but there is plenty of sus things going on in this game. Like, why, if the company was trying to rebuild its reputation with these friendly animatronics, have they not shut down the project after I'm sure they've gotten emails and stuff about the animatronics going rogue? And why the absolute hell did they include versions of Springtrap, a character that we know thanks to the man in room 1280, everyone knows is guilty. They have multiple versions of him as well, the normal one, the toxic one, and the curse, which is a recent addition as far as I know. They literally named him the Curse. It's... what? Just remove him from the program. Why would I want to order a literal killer? Is this the same thing as when, like, girls say that serial killers are hot? Because that's also messed up. Like, how am I supposed to compete with that? Actually, there is a solution. I'll be back. And 2, Just an Illusion. FNAF Sister Location is probably one of the most popular FNAF games to date, with plenty of fan favorites like Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Baby being added, as well as the new fan art favorite Ballora. However, is what you see really what you get in this particular FNAF game? Well, it's a good question, and you may be thinking, Connor, Of course it is. What are you talking about? You're dumb. And if you are saying that, I'd like to direct you to when we have to repair Funtime Freddy in Sister Location. As we open up his chest cavity, we can see a weird disc, something that's being described in the books as being able to create illusions using sound. And it seems to be flashing red. They call it a power module, but there is no way that that little disc is a power module. And if it's one of those discs, could it be changing the look of everything? Hell, this could have taken place in the basement of a goddamn shack, and we wouldn't know. It's pretty scary to think about. Finally, in at number 1, Mrs. Afton. We don't know the identity of Mrs. Afton. We don't even know if there is a Mrs. Afton, or if she was just a baby mama, or hell, if William's kids are just adopted. Most people draw a connection between Mrs. Afton and Clara from Immortal and the Restless, so much so that people believe Mrs. Afton's name is Clara. However, I propose the idea that could explain what happened to Mrs. Afton, and it makes a great amount of sense. The Fazbear Frights books were meant to help explain bits of the in-game lore, along with making Scott more money. Take the book Bunny Call with the story The Man in Room 1280, which I keep going back to. But this time, I'm talking about the story 1:35 AM from the book of the same name. This story revolves around Delia, who has recently gotten divorced from her husband, heartbroken because she never got the family that she wanted. She comes across a garage sale that has a doll that looked exactly like the daughter she had envisioned. She buys it and finds out that it's an alarm clock. Then, much like an actual baby, instead of waking her up when she wanted, she ends up getting woken up at 1:35 AM every morning. It gets so bad she runs away and hides in a factory ventilation shaft where she waits until she dies or suffocates. That's a really brief synopsis, but let's look at the parallels between Delia and Mrs. Afton, as well as Delia's story. Delia's parents died when she was young, so she was put into the foster care system where she was bounced around from family to family, but also was continuously abused. Eventually, she fell in love and was ready to start a family until her husband divorced her, which could be the case between William and his partner. We have no evidence as to what happened between them, so we can only speculate. Delia never managed to get the kids she wanted, and Mrs. Afton, assuming she was still alive, didn't get the kids in any form of divorce or court hearing, since we see the three of them living with William in FNAF 4 and Midnight Motorist. And then the surrogate daughter for Delia is a possessed doll. We learn she is possessed in another story where Phineas Taggart needs it to study agony, much like how William's daughter Elizabeth ends up possessing basically a giant robotic doll. The connection is somewhat loose, yes, but certainly more solid than Clara, since she was just talking to a purple-suited vampire about having this kid, and Vlad was denying it, despite it clearly being his, but still. Perhaps both of these stories combine together to create the story of Mrs. Afton. Not to mention the next story in that book is about the mini-Renas, who are meant to be Bellora's surrogate children. And who do people think that Bellora either represents or is possessed by? Mrs. Afton. And intent corruption. It took me a while to realize, but the FNAF series is all about corruption, at least in a metaphorical sense. Sure, the story is about kids getting murdered and possessing animal-themed robots, but a huge theme of the series is corruption. William was corrupted into killing, those kids were corrupted by William, the animatronics that got possessed were corrupted, the restaurant was corrupted, and corruption is an even more prevalent theme now, and like it's literally occurring. Like with William literally corrupting a hard drive that gets scanned into FNAF VR, which he then corrupts, you know, because he corrupts the game. William corrupts Jeremy and gets him to off himself. He corrupts Tape Girl and Vanny. He corrupts animatronics in Security Breach and Special Delivery. Each of his children get corrupted and killed. Like, it's a main theme of the series, and William can't die until the corruption stops. I just thought that was kind of cool. It's present literally everywhere. And at 9, spring locks. A lot of people didn't understand what I was talking about when I was saying that Crown Child's death makes no sense, so I'm going in depth here so I can explain how the spring lock mechanics work in universe and how this applies to Crying Child's death scene. The term spring lock in and of itself is kind of confusing, since it can be used to refer to multiple things. A spring lock can talk about an animatronic that can switch between suit and robot modes, like Golden Bonnie that William uses to kill the original 5, and the Golden Freddy we see in FNAF 4's cutscenes. We know it can be a suit because we see William putting someone into it in one of the minigames in the back room. And spring lock is also a term for the mechanism used to hold back robotic parts in those specific suits so a person can fit inside. We know these can fail when exposed to water, since this is how William got stuck in the Springtrap suit in FNAF 3's minigames. So most people assume that Crying Child's tears loosen the locks of the mouth, and that's why he gets chomped. But that was already in animatronic mode, so the spring locks weren't active. and they couldn't fail because they aren't in use. And there wouldn't need to be any in the mouth to begin with, only the pistons used to move the jaw up and down since no human body part is in the mouth. And if we're wrong and this is just an animatronic without suit capabilities, there would be no spring locks in the suit at all. Now, a human skull would require 1900 newtons of force to be crushed, something way beyond what should be used for an animatronic. And even to fracture it, it would require around 1100 newtons, something that would require a piston that uses its own air compressor, and you would need multiple of them. Since that's something we don't see on stage with Freddy, and it would be something that would be impossible to fit inside of him, because like air compressors are huge even with our current technology, that's why Crying Child's death scene is impossible. There is no physical way the animatronic could have crushed his skull, unless there's something going on that we don't know about, which is entirely possible, but highly unlikely. And it ate paper shadows. Shout out to YouTube user XXShadowFredbearXX-0- for pointing this one out to me, because it actually is really interesting and it's a detail I never noticed. If you have a small detail that I have yet to cover, please let me know in the comments. The comments are really helping me get through these videos, especially this one. So go shoot your shot, and if you do, you might just get a shout out if I use your point. Anyway, Shadow Fredbear pointed out that the Paper Pals, characters I talked about in the previous part, who could seemingly move around at will, are the characters that have shadow counterparts. I described the Paper Pals as Bonnie, Freddy, and a humanoid that could possibly be Balloon Boy. However, the human-like character who has a shadow counterpart is Dee Dee, someone based off the looks of Balloon Boy. The other animatronics, Bonnie and Freddy, each have shadow versions as well that were introduced in FNAF 2. What could this mean exactly? Unknown. I need to kind of work on it. This is something very interesting and I'd like to get to the bottom of it. And it's 7 time travel. So, time travel is possible in the FNAF canon, and at least in the Fazbear Frights book series, since the first book, Into the Pit, has a story talking about someone getting into a ball pit and time traveling, hot tub time machine style. But like, does that mean anyone can have this happen to them? Like, is it possible that anyone from the games could have this happen to them? Perhaps Gregory is Crying Child, who fell into a pit and got sucked into the events of security breach, and then we'll go back in time at the end of the game, or well, I guess go back to his time at the end of the game, showing why he fears the animatronics and being in a pizzeria. Maybe William can time travel through the games, and this is him in the far future. There are so many possibilities. Like, maybe this is why the timeline doesn't make any sense, because someone keeps changing it. I solved FNAF! It has its own Barry Allen. And it's 6 upgrades. How on earth is this franchise able to upgrade its location constantly? You'd think that after multiple deaths of the joint's prime clientele, that the place would be ruined, right? But then these folks come in hitting us with that Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex. How do they have the money to open a whole, basically, mall after so many kids have gone missing in their establishments? Why do parents let their kids go here? It can't be that they think that it's fake, right? I mean, like, who would believe... Oh wait, I know who would believe that it's fake. The same people that believe that 5 kids actually went missing in a Chuck E. Cheese instead of realizing that it's just a Twitter picture and like a meme. Like, it's funny because it's backwards in this like analogy. I'm sure they wouldn't believe if it actually happened, and only believe that it happened here because of the games. Like, but I mean, who knows? Clearly not them. It just doesn't make sense to me. How is this good publicity? Like, even if you go by any publicity as good publicity, this isn't it. It makes no sense, especially in this scenario. Halfway through into number 5, Purple Guy. The FNAF community was up in arms over the true Purple Guy debate after the release of Sister Location and the discovery of the ending. In this ending, we have an end cutscene of Michael walking around after being scooped by Ennard, but then also turning more and more purple as he walked down the street after multiple days, making us question if he was really the infamous Purple Guy. He isn't, since the Purple Guy isn't physically purple, but this begs the question, why was Michael purple? Most assume that he was in fact a decaying corpse that smells bad, hence the reason for being fired in the original games, but that never made sense to me, since in every form of media, decaying or decayed bodies that aren't supposed to look realistic are shown as green and not purple, because like that would make more sense, at least in my brain it does. However, do you know what is purple? Bruises. We know he isn't dead, so why would his body be rotting? Because it's not. It's being battered from the inside, causing extreme bruising, hence why everyone is scared. They don't understand. why this dude is like literally purple, and it's because of all the bruises. And at 4, why Henry? In the original FNAF novel series, to my knowledge, the characters of William and Henry are introduced as business partners. William is the businessman who handles the financial and actual business side of the company, while Henry is the creative one who really works on the animatronics. This could be wrong, but this is how I've been explained and understand their roles. And the characters in the games at least have a similar role layout, with Henry making loads of new animatronics for FNAF 6. But we also know that William was the one who modified the animatronics, or corrupted them, see, full circle, and was the one who built the sister location animatronics and had a robot business called Afton Robotics. So my thought is, if William was already capable of creating these things and this entire company from scratch, since we know that Circus Baby's Pizza World opened after Freddy's, why did William involve Henry at all? Like, wouldn't it just be a liability? Having someone work so closely with the things you intend on using to kill with? Like, it seems stupid to me. Some say that a criminal career starts with too much caution or too much arrogance, but to me, this doesn't seem like either. Maybe too much arrogance, but he had already started killing at this point, so like, what the hell, dude? Was it to keep him close because you wanted to kill his daughter, or was his daughter actually yours? And 3, genes. Last people, a lot of people seem to be confused by the genetics of the Afton family, and I've talked about it before, but I'll go over it again for everyone that's new here. Also, hi, thanks for subscribing. We're almost at 500k, that's insane. With genetics, what you see is not all that you get. For example, my sister and I both have dark hair. However, when mine is shorter, and even more so when I was a kid, my hair was much redder than hers. Much redder than it is now, even. This is because red hair is a recessive gene. There are dominant and recessive genes, and it's easiest to describe this using a Punnett square. Let's look at this one, for example. Let's say that we're crossbreeding bananas, one green and one more commonly yellow. The green color is dominant and the yellow is recessive, which means that if the banana lies in one of the top 2 spots and it has the green trait, it will be dominant and you'll see green, even if it has the yellow gene, because yellow is recessive and green is dominant. However, as you can see, it is possible to have a green banana have a yellow banana offspring, even if the banana is green, because it also has the yellow gene. So even with the dominant gene, the green banana could have a yellow offspring. Even with another green banana, in fact. However, if this was the case, that new banana would have a 25% chance of being yellow if it has 2 green parents, each with the yellow gene. Like I said, it's a 1 in 4 chance, but it's still possible. This is the case with Elizabeth, where a parent doesn't necessarily have to have the trait visually, but rather in their DNA. I'm not the best at explaining this, but you get the idea. However, Elizabeth isn't ginger, she's blonde, which I don't understand where you got that from. But blonde is also a recessive trait, so the same thing applies. And we haven't seen the mother, or even really William Afton, so she could be blonde. Maybe she also has blue eyes, which is dominant over green, but it's still possible if she has the green-eyed trait, and William does too. And Elizabeth isn't ginger, okay, she's blonde. I honestly don't know where you got that from. What? Like, come on. Watch the cutscene. Penultimately, in at number 2, force a crowd. I proposed the idea last time that perhaps William and his wife, or baby mama, but most likely wife at this point, had 4 kids instead of the 3 we see on screen. This was mostly based off the Immortal and the Restless TV series from Sister Location, where a woman was telling a character meant to represent William that he had a son that clearly was his, but William was denying it, or I guess Vlad was denying it, proposing that maybe he thought she had cheated or didn't want the kid. And after discussing genetics and trying to explain to the people who didn't really understand, it just shows how likely this scenario is. If the babies came out blonde, William might have just thought that they weren't his. But I think later that William realized that the baby was his and wanted her back, or perhaps I'm wrong about the whole he denied it originally thing, and instead he wanted her all along. But it wasn't 100% with me yet, it was still just a theory. Until this comment from YouTube user Saber Sapphire on the last Tiny Details video. I think we can all agree that Ballora is an allegory for Mrs. Afton. She isn't possessed, because she would have had to be alive to run away with a child, but that after she left, William made this robot as a way to cope. We can also agree that she is a mother figure to the Minirinas, and that's what got us all thinking that she was meant to be the mother in the first place, aside from her song. Well, Saber pointed out the number of Minirinas that Ballora has, 4. Ballora has 4 children, and if she is meant to represent the mother of the Afton kids, this will only solidify this theory more for me. Finally, in at number 1, motivation. While this number isn't based on this comment, a comment from user B Cooper helped spark this idea in my brain, along with the last comment. They said, I think the fourth child is Vanessa and she was Elizabeth's twin. If there is actually a fourth Afton kid, and if Vanessa is that kid, it would make sense for her to have been Elizabeth's twin. She's the proper age, and they both are blonde with green eyes. We don't have many other features for Elizabeth because, you know, she was an 8-bit, but with the information we have, it matches and it matches well. It could also be potential motivation for William. Maybe that's why Susie was first, because she looked like maybe the mother perhaps, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Maybe William has green eyes, or like I explained in number 3, they both have the gene, even if it's not visible. This could also be the inspiration behind Baby's mechanics and why the fun times are meant to capture children. So he could use them to find his other daughter. Hence why he told Elizabeth specifically to stay away from Baby, because he had programmed Baby to look for and capture a child that looked exactly like her because they were twins. He never told Crying Child or Michael to stay away from them, right? At least from what we saw, because they weren't in danger. This could be it. I am 100% certain at this point that the Aftons have 4 kids and that the mother ran away with the 4th. This has to be what's going on, right? It has to be what's going to be revealed in Security Breach. In a 10, Special Delivery. Special Delivery is a weird game, and while I do mean the gameplay aspects like collecting Remnant, in this case I really mean in a timeline sense, since we know it takes place between Help Wanted and Security Breach, but what is the canonicity of this game? Are they actually trying to rebuild their image by sending out animatronics that were supposed to be friendly, or are they intentionally scaring people? And do the customers know if they're going to be scared, like a mail order killer service? Or do they expect an animatronic helper for around the house? And what is with sending out versions of the killer that ruined the reputation of the company in the first place? Like, is it a joke? Is it intentional? Do they know that was the housing for William after they thought he disappeared? Or is this all just fake? One of the games that we know within the universe. Are these animatronics really getting sent to your house, or are we as the player experiencing the same thing someone in universe would experience, like through their phone, an AR game? Like, what is actually going on in this game? And 9, Hover Hands. I don't think I've mentioned this before in this series, but I noticed something that most people seem to ignore while discussing the ending to FNAF VR. Most people assume that we swapped places with Glitch Trap, that he takes over our body in the final fight. But if when you get onto the stage after he swaps, you can see your hands and headset are missing if you look back to the desk you were at. Your holographic hands are nowhere to be seen. Yes, your controllers are controlling the Glitch Trap suit hands, but if you're really swapped, you would see holographic hands at that spot, most likely waving and taking off the headset. So why aren't they there? Because we don't swap places with Glitch Trap, we merge with him. I think that this is fairly common knowledge by now, but when MatPat first released his video and said Glitch Trap escapes this game through us, nobody seemed to notice that, and he in fact didn't. So there you go. You should have heard it here first, but you weren't subscribed, so don't worry, it's okay. Speaking of that, if you're enjoying the video, why don't you hit that like button? It really helps us out and lets us know what you want to see more of, and while you're doing it, just click subscribe. We're so close to 500,000 subscribers, and we know you love FNAFs, so we're still making FNAF. And an 8 fanfiction. We know there are plenty of FNAF fanfictions, probably too many if I'm honest. The ones we've talked about here are creepypastas, but I guess in a way it's sort of theories. However, have we ever stopped to consider any in-universe FNAF fanfiction? Or, well, at least I guess Freddy Fazbear fanfiction? Whether it be about the games that are in-universe or the characters themselves. Believe it or not, there is in fact Chuck E. Cheese fanfiction, so it is possible. But what would these fanfictions be? What about this Silver Eyes or Fazbear Frights? The novel isn't fully connected to the games, only sharing some similar aspects and characters, right? That's what fanfiction is. And Scott wasn't the only one who wrote these books. He had help. The Silver Eyes was also written by Kiara Breed Risley as well. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. If I did, I apologize. And Fazbear Frights had help from Ellie Cooper and Andrea Wagner. So technically, since they're not Scott Cawthon, it's just fanfiction that is considered canon. Huh. Gives you a lot to think about, huh? So go ahead, write your fan fiction. Just make sure that it isn't nasty. And don't ship dead kids with their killer or their dead sibling. Okay? I can't believe that that's a thing. And it's 7 Glamrock Chica. While YouTuber Daka was doing a live stream for charity, when they would hit certain donation goals, they would unlock a new security breach teaser. One of the final ones was a picture of Glamrock Chica smashed in an alley or a junk lot of some kind, which first of all is very reminiscent of the scrapped animatronics from FNAF 6, but ignore that. There is one distinct detail that everyone noticed, but nobody seemed to really question further than why. And that detail being Chica is missing her beak. But not only did the same thing happen to Toy Chica in FNAF 2, but they also share the same body shape. Originally, Toy Chica lost her beak to make her scarier, and somehow Scott made it seem like it had bigger implications in the live stream from MatPat during the FNAF 4 days. Maybe it's because this was coming, or he wanted to make it seem bigger than it was. Or maybe Dream Theory was right for a time, but it isn't anymore. I don't know, I just figured it was an interesting detail that we should keep an eye on. Maybe how she loses her beak will be a big help in solving earlier problems. Or maybe there's something else in this image that I'm missing. I don't know. And at 6, Symmetry. FNAF VR has some interesting story elements that I'd like to point out to you. This was the basis for a personal theory I had a long time ago where I thought that in FNAF VR, we played as a man named Gabriel who was playtesting the game, since at the end we ended up getting stuffed into Freddy. However, there were other details that drove me to this conclusion, like for example, the fact that Glitch Trap causes Jeremy, a name that we know all too well in this series, to cut his face off, and then Bonnie shows up in the final room in the Pizza Party minigame, missing his face. And that Chica starts off without her arm in the Parts and Service minigame and shows up without the same arm in the final room as well. However, symmetry like this is everywhere in the FNAF series as a whole and not just in this game. Like how William would stuff his victims into the suits and then got stuck in one himself, etc. It's interesting and something I'm sure we'll see more of, so keep your eye out. Halfway through into number 5, history. Is FNAF history repeating itself? It's an interesting question that we should probably discuss since it seems like it might be. This idea started when I thought about how both dummy-thick versions of Chica lose their beaks, and it escalated from there. Because it seems like William is taking the lives of his original victims again, well at least by name. Granted, we don't know Tape Girl's name, and it could be Vanny, and we don't know who our character plays in we don't know who our character's name is in FNAF VR, and that could also be Vanny, but technically Vanessa, you know what I mean. Because as Glitch Trap, William has already taken the life of Jeremy, someone we know to be the one who possessed Bonnie based on the FNAF 3 ending, as well as the gravestone screen from FNAF 6. He made Jeremy cut his face off, like how Bonnie at the end of the Pizza Party minigame in the final room is missing his face. We don't know what became of Tape Girl, but she could very well be represented by Chica as well. Someone we thought was okay, but then turned out to be incomplete, ergo the missing arm. Not in possession of all her marbles, should I say, as the final tape seems to indicate. It's interesting, and maybe Gregory in Security Breach will end up being the next crying child. But hopefully not Napkin Kid, because Christ, would that be annoying. In at 4, fake. Much like any YouTube video prank, what if everything in this world is fake? The story, the death, the in-universe minigames, the animatronics and special delivery, help wanted. What if it was all fake and just meant to be a massive marketing stunt that went entirely wrong? Or hell, maybe it went horribly right. If Freddy Fazbear's was dying, much like how Chuck E. Cheese was failing, could it possibly be that Fredbear's was too? And in an effort to keep the business alive, William and Henry created a marketing scheme that would get them some publicity and even bring in some more customers that were fans of horror. I mean, it would explain why William was never convicted and why the investigation was so flawed. They didn't actually check the suits because there was, in reality, no bodies inside them. They never leaked blood or mucus or smelled terrible. Why would anyone go if they did? Or stick around when they saw it, or hell, even smelt it? It also explains how, even through all this horror, they were able to expand, eventually opening an entire mall that they called a Pizzaplex. Oh man, am I onto something here? And at 3, Gotchaverse. Unfortunately, in the FNAF canon, there are now multiple timelines and multiple dimensions thanks to the confirmation of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. However, that basically means any fan fiction about FNAF is true in one form or another, and any theory about FNAF is correct in one universe, which unfortunately means that there is an entire canon version of the FNAF Gotcha fandom. Don't get me wrong, it's cringy and it really shouldn't exist, but technically it's canon in another Earth. I don't know what to do with this information. It just kind of makes me sad, honestly. And to Oswald. It may have come across as a joke when I said it in the last part, and how I mentioned that FNAF has its own Barry Allen that's going around messing up the timeline. But you know what? It wasn't. Not anymore, at least. Scott has stated before that the Fazbear Frights books are meant to help us solve bits of confusion in the main FNAF canon, like how William was able to survive being spring-locked and whatnot. But I believe that Scott has given us the biggest answer already in the very first story of the series. Into the Pit is the title of the first story and the first Fazbear Frights book, and is centered around Oswald, a kid who loves to draw but has recently been focusing on furry animals with robots inside. Eventually, he finds a ball pit that sends him through time into the past, where eventually he sees 6 murders and flees back to his time. But he does survive until the end of the story, which is kind of rare for these Fazbear Frights books. I think that it was on purpose. There are a lot of things that contradict themselves in this story, with statements from different characters changing the timeline and making it so damn difficult to navigate. Plus, now we have multiple dimensions to think about with the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative and the book series worlds. But what if the reason the timeline is so clunky is because Oswald is changing it? There isn't much of a connection to the games for these first couple stories, but looking at it like this has it make a lot more sense, and explains all the changes. It's like Flashpoint. Barry knew what was different because he was outside of the timeline change. We're outside this timeline too, and that's why we see the mistakes. This genuinely seems like the only explanation to me. I mean, I know it's highly unlikely, but I mean, what other explanation could there be? Finally, in at number 1, skins. FNAF AR doesn't only have a confusing story, it also has confusing mechanics. Like, for example, if everything is supposed to be real, where are all these skins coming from? And how is it possible? And to that, I think I have a solution. If these skins are meant to be real, because why wouldn't they be? If we can see them, they must be real, right? I think that there is a simple explanation that solves this issue that I've been having for a while. The illusion discs from the Twisted Ones novel that we also see in Sister Location. These, as we know, can easily manipulate the appearance of anything nearby, at least in the minds of individuals close enough to the discs themselves. And this is the most likely scenario to explain how we can change the skins of these animatronics basically at will. It just sets the disc to emit the proper sound, or however it changes the looks of these things. Right frequency, I guess? Which is honestly kinda cool. It would also be cool if we had this in real life so I could change my appearance whenever I wanted, but like just my clothing. You don't want to get rid of the moneymaker right here. Imagine just like changing skins at will like you can in Minecraft or Fortnite. Like, it would be fun, but like it would just be clothes. So you can just be like, haha, I'm wearing a banana. Haha, I'm a burrito. Haha, I'm a glizzy gobbler. And at 10, grandfather clock. One of the biggest pieces of evidence for dream theory was the grandfather clock sound at the end of your shifts in FNAF 1, 2, and 3. Since why would you hear a grandfather clock in an office? Which makes sense. But thanks to Nightmare Freddy's April Fool's Day mechanics, we know that dream theory is false. So why are we hearing a grandfather clock? I mean, there very well could be one in the office, like, I mean, like, it's not impossible, it's just highly unlikely, but it could also just be that we change the alarm tone on our phone, and we have an alarm set for 6 a.m., so we know the minute that we can get off the job. I can understand that, especially given the horrific environment this job places us in, and no, I'm not talking about the internet, I'm talking about the job in-game, although it does work for both of us. And at 9, Bonnie goes missing. Aside from being a great name for a children's book, I'm claiming privileges, Scott, that doesn't really help the fact that after Sister Location, Bonnie just kind of vanished, not including FNAF VR, AR, or Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night since it's a dream, FNAF VR because it's just all the games, and AR since it's not really a game, it's a service, at least in universe. And Bonnie isn't in the main lineup for Security Breach, and instead has a bowling alley with no known appearances otherwise. So what happened? When Chica was left out of Sister Location, we got Chica's Party World as an excuse, but does Bonnie have the same sort of thing going? Did they swap between the events of Sister Location and Security Breach? Like, what on earth is the deal here? Where did Bonnie go? And at 8, why did they make the games? We still don't know what games are the ones created by the Scott Cawthon stand-in in the FNAF universe, but we also still don't really know why either. We hear that he made them on his own to capitalize on the tragedies, which makes sense, but then we also have Tape Girl who tells us that Fazbear Entertainment hired this guy to make the games so that people wouldn't be so apprehensive about returning to their restaurants. That had to have been the way things went, because even we as fans of the series want a real-life Freddy Fazbear's, so I'm sure that in-universe these games have the same effect. whatever the games may be, which would also explain how they were able to expand, which is why that makes more sense than Scott doing it on his own, at least Scott's in-universe counterpart. Why did you have to do this though, Scott? Like, why must you torture me? I mean, it's incredible, and it's great storytelling, but why? And it's 7 layout. Thank you to YouTube user Octoling for the comments on part 9 pointing this one out. In their comment, they pointed out that FNAF 4 and FNAF 2 have very similar layouts, with 2 entrances on the left and right, with a big one in the center. These being the 2 side vents in FNAF 2, and the doors to the hallways in FNAF 4, and the big door in FNAF 2 being the big closet in FNAF 4. Now, if this is because the base coding is the same, at least for the office section, or if it's for another reason is unknown, but it's a tiny detail that you don't really think about, so it belongs on this list. Does it have bigger lore implications? Maybe, but unlikely. I genuinely think that it's because the code is so similar that he might have just copied and pasted with different textures, and instead of lights that we can activate, we end up running to the doors. But either way, it's something to chew on. And it's 6 eyes. We all know that Freddy starts moving closer to the end of the original game, and as I've said before, he wasn't really originally meant to move. However, on the cameras, you still don't really see him. It won't be obvious like it is for Bonnie or Chica, but instead you'll see 2 white dots as his eyes. But like, how is this possible? When he does show up at our door, we can see that he has normal animatronic eyes in his sockets like Bonnie and Chica do, so how are there only 2 dots that are really able to be seen? Especially when they're being blocked and no other animatronics do this kind of thing. It's so weird, and I just don't think that it has any like bigger implications, but I still want to know why these white dots come from behind the eyes. Are they that bright? Because those eyes are meant to disperse the light that would normally come from the LEDs, if there are any LEDs behind the eyes, so it's strange in my opinion, and I'll never really be satisfied with the answer, so I'll just move on. Halfway through into number 5, Nightmare Mangle. From what I understand with the Nightmare animatronics, a few got added in a Halloween DLC, but only Nightmare Balloon Boy was canon. I may be wrong about this, and it has been a while since I saw that, but to my understanding, Nightmare Mangle was not canon. We determined this had to be because Crying Child hadn't seen Puppet or Mangle yet, but had seen Balloon Boy. However, we know for a fact that Crying Child has seen Mangle. He appears in his sister's room as a torn up plushie next to her bed. There is no stuffing by her bed, which is ironic given the series, but it's still kinda weird that Mangle wasn't deemed canon if it was there. Shout out to Avery Truesdell for spotting this and putting it in the comments of part 9. So if Crying Child does know what Mangle looks like, how is that not canon? Scott went out of his way to say that Balloon Boy was canon, meaning the others had to not be canon, right? I'm so damn confused. I can't do this anymore. No, I'm only halfway through. And at 4, FNAF IRL. I've made multiple videos about how a real-life Freddy Fazbear's could exist, and may even be coming as early as 2023. But as I was writing this script, I thought, what if we were getting a real-life FNAF crossover? Now, this might be a little outlandish, but bear with me here. We're hoping to get a real-life FNAF in 2023, since that's when Fazbear Frights opens in universe. But it was all speculation and the power of positive thinking. No actual evidence, and Scott even said himself that he wouldn't do it. But are we being set up to think that it's not going to happen, and instead getting one of the most ambitious crossovers of all time? Well, the Fazbear Fanverse Initiative may hold some clues. This is a group of fan game creators that Scott has funded to help make another game. Five Nights at Candy's 4 being the most popular in this group. But this collection of fan games also contains a new version of The Joy of Creation, the Ignited Collection, where if you're not familiar, you play as Scott Cawthon himself being chased by ignited versions of the original animatronics. Basically more withered versions. And since the FNAF multiverse is now a thing thanks to these games and the books, could Scott make this into one of those universes and use that game as a bridge between worlds? It would kind of make sense, but it would also be absolutely terrifying. And at 3, Chris Afton. There are a lot of names for Crying Child, and I'm here to set the record straight. None of them have been confirmed. Crying Child isn't even a canonical name. I'm pretty sure it's just another name for the character because he was always crying, or was mostly crying. It's just another name that we gave him. The names I've been seeing recently are Chris, Norman, Evan, and Kyle, and I don't know where most of these came from. Evan comes from the security logbook, and most people seem to think that this is canon, but it's not. They've also had to really struggle to get the N as far as I could tell, so if you want to believe that, currently their name is Eve. Chris is random, and I'm pretty sure came from a FNAF-themed music video. Same thing with that car accident that apparently killed the mother. They're not actually canon. Norman isn't anywhere to be found either, and the same thing with Kyle, because I made that one up. not. But I'm certain that there will be at least one person who, when I said that, yelled, "Finally!" or something along those lines. Crying Child does not have a name. It's not a tiny detail, but it's something that a lot of people don't really think about. So if you have a detail but put it in the comments with a name that isn't confirmed, it could be about anyone, so I really tend to scroll past those, but I had to set the record straight, okay? No canon name for Crying Child. If you want to call him whatever, it's fine, but don't use it as evidence or say that it's confirmed or canon, because it's not. However, if they have solidly found evidence for all of the letters of Evan, please send the link to me on Instagram so I can like start looking around, like so I can actually see that. But until that point, it's not confirmed. It's even not confirmed after I see it. It's not like I'm the one confirming it, but you know what I mean. And 2, passive mode. Shout out to Robert Vasvensky for posting this in the comments of part 9 as well. This really helped me. Why is it that out of the 2 shadow animatronics in FNAF 2, there's one that's passive and one that's aggressive? And why is Bonnie the aggressive one? Shadow Freddy's just chillin', slumped over, not really moving. But Shadow Bonnie will just come in and absolutely torment the hell out of you by flickering your lights and just overall being a tool. But why does this theme remain even after this game, with Shadow Bonnie being aggressive in FNAF AR as well? Is it just the spirits creating these figures that have different personalities? Or is it a different emotion that created these A to begin with, or B, making one more aggressive than the other? I don't know, but it's hella interesting. Because like, if agony caused Shadow Bonnie, but a different emotion caused Shadow Freddy, it would explain why Shadow Freddy is passive. Finally, in at number 1, Oblivious. In a previous video, multiple videos in fact, I've said that the company doesn't care because they're sending and replicating the suit of the dude who caused them to have a bad rap in the first place in FNAF Special Delivery. They're replicating Springtrap and they're just sending him on his way, going like, yeah, go kill more kids. However, a commenter pointed out to me that when discussing Springtrap in the AR emails, they referred to Springtrap as an older Bonnie model, which I find confusing because, well, how do you know it's an older Bonnie model, but then you call it Springtrap in the app? I know that it's because we know him as Springtrap and that's like our universe reason, but assuming we were in the FNAF universe, we would be using the app that at least looks similar to the one that we use, if not the exact same, minus the whole animatronic fight sequences, because those would be happening in real life. And if Springtrap is listed as Springtrap and not older Bonnie, Fazbear Entertainment needs to explain. Fazbear, explain! What do you mean it's Arkansas? But also, why would you not recall the animatronics and just go get them? Or have somewhere people can deposit them? Or company-wide shutdown switch? You should have thought of that by now, especially after how many things have gone wrong. In a 10 human counterpart? This point is brought to you by YouTube users Ruby Pupstar and Henry, who commented on the last Tiny Details video. The Circus Baby animatronic is a complex robot with the spirit of Elizabeth inside and sinister goals and intentions, but she's different to her Fazbear Frike's book counterpart, but also similar in a lot of ways. One of those reasons being the pin-like mechanisms that cover her body. In the books, she uses these pins to switch between her animatronic form and a realistic human form. These pins are also visible on the game version of the character as well. And since they're never really used for anything in game, we can safely assume that they're intended for a different purpose. Well, like the same purpose as the book, but a different purpose. You get it. But why does this matter? Well, this brings up the question, who is her human counterpart? Have we been seeing her? Do we know what she looks like in human form, if she has one yet? Or is it just a design detail that shows us that she can change between looking like her and us, since she, as a part of Ennard, takes over our bodies at the end of Sister Location? Does she have to do this before she unlocks this power, or is it always there? Will we see her in Security Breach? If I know. Anything can happen at this point. And at 9, Bad Press Bonnie. This was pointed out by multiple users in the comments from the last part, but the first one I saw was from user SockGems once again. These users suggested that perhaps the reason we don't see Bonnie in Security Breach is because it would be bad for business, considering how multiple kids were killed by a man wearing a golden Bonnie springlock suit. It's also interesting how blood never triggered the mechanisms in the suit, but that's aside the point. Anyway, with all this attention on the Bonnie animatronic, it's understandable why they would want to keep it quiet, and only give the character a bowling alley. But if this was the reason why they scrapped the character, why are they still sending Springtrap animatronics in special delivery? Why are they putting out multiple skins for Springtrap? If they know that the killer used a spring Bonnie or at least a golden Bonnie suit, why would they risk more bad press, especially when they know these animatronics are malfunctioning? We know these games take place around the same time since the Afton virus is the thing corrupting the special delivery animatronics, but why would they continue to do that? That's so stupid. Like, I get it. These people are definitely missing a few brain cells, but can't be missing all of them. Come on. And before we move on to number 8, if you're enjoying this series and love that we've been able to cover over 100 FNAF tiny details, be sure you're hitting that like button. It really helps us out and lets more people find the video and the channel. And check in the top right corner for the first part of the series and as well as a new playlist for it. Yeah, this series now deserves a playlist. Jesus. And it aids special features. The puppet is a character I'm sure all of us love, and while a load of fans like to turn this character into something sinister and terrifying, see the top 10 FNAF fan alternate versions of the puppet for more on that, why is it so special? According to Ultimate Custom Night Deathlines, Chica was the first of the victims, meaning that she would have to be the special one, right? At least the first of the missing children. But why is it that the puppet is the one that's able to give gifts and give life in the FNAF 2 minigame? It awakens the animatronics, so what's the deal? Is it more emotion magic, since agony is the emotion that causes possession? Is it perhaps love that can bring those things to life? We know that Henry loved his daughter, trying so hard to set her free in FNAF 3 and 6, but he also tried to keep her safe above anyone else, as we see in the security puppet minigame, giving Charlotte a special green bracelet that the puppet used to track her. That's the only explanation I can think of that makes sense. Maybe the puppet can feel the overwhelming love from her family, and that's how she's able to do it. I don't know. And at 7, Dynamic Duo. There are so many FNAF ships it makes me sick to my stomach. And while that also may be the fact that I've only eaten a Kit Kat today, I didn't think that FNAF ships would go this far. There are 2 animatronics notably missing from the Security Breach roster, Bonnie as previously mentioned and Foxy, instead being replaced by Roxanne Wolf and Montgomery Gator. But thanks to Instagram user that Colby Flats who DM'd me and a YouTube user in the last part, they pointed out that Roxanne is actually a combination of Foxy and Bonnie, almost as if they had a child together. I know it would be impossible, considering how they're both robots and can't have a biological child, but the design of the character matches them both closely. Wolves aren't that different from foxes, being basically cousins, foxes diverting from the wolf lineage around 12 million years ago, and Roxy plays the guitar, and the guitar was reserved exclusively for Bonnie up until this point, excluding the mediocre melodies. It's weird and I can't believe that Foxy and Bonnie have a daughter, at least technically speaking, but I shouldn't be surprised at this point. And at 6, Scrabble. The Shadow animatronics are some of the most mysterious characters in the game, but we've already talked about them in the last part. Why they were made and why is only Bonnie aggressive, those questions have already been asked. But a new question presented by G5 Studio on the last marathon for this series asked why the hell Shadow Freddy is the only Shadow animatronic with a normal name, while Bonnie and Dee Dee have a mix of letters, RWQFSFASXC for Bonnie and XOR for Shadow Dee Dee. But why are their names just letters? My first and only guess is that there's some form of cipher and that we just need to decode them, but I've had no luck with Visionaire ciphers and anagrams, especially with cipher anagrams, taking what I got from the cipher and trying to unscramble it. And it could also be that Scott just didn't name the animatronics and instead smashed his head on the keyboard from frustration and then just kept it. But Scott doesn't really do things like that, that's more of a me thing. And FNAF 2, where RWQFSFASXC was introduced, started to expand on the lore of the world, so it could be possible that there's something more there. Halfway through in at number 5, Lost in Time. This is a bit of a wild idea, but with Afton being in a game, that game being FNAF VR, and now a virus, could he be immortal and timeless? And for those who are confused, let me try to explain. The internet has been around for ages now. Nobody born within the past 30 years has really grown up without the internet having at least some part in their lives. And viruses have also been around for ages. They've gotten a lot more complex and creative, but they've been around for a while. Could William be using this to access any point in time where the internet was still available, like Savitar from The Flash Season 3, who tried to shatter his existence throughout time? Could William have successfully done the same thing? Could he we have actually used this virus on all other animatronics in the games, and that's why they attack us. I mean, this isn't really that far-fetched for a universe with possessed robots in agony and a time-traveling ball pit, so I'd buy it. And at 4, mediocre melodies. This isn't entirely new news, but we've learnt the origins of the mediocre melodies crew. What seemed like random additions in FNAF 6 were actually set up 3 games earlier. FNAF 3's Night 4 phone calls has Phone Guy talking about multiple simultaneous spring lock failures occurring at the sister location. This isn't the place we visit in that game, but rather another Fazbear joint. He says the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees, and that the classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our technicians. Until replacements arrive, you'll be expected to wear the temporary costumes provided to you. Keep in mind that they were found on very short notice, so questions of appropriateness/relevance should be deflected. And while it could have been just about some crappy knockoff Frank Fazbear costumes from AliExpress, the line about questions about relevance should be deflected seems to point that they aren't the normal Fazbear crew. And the only other group we really see are the mediocre melodies, hence why they're mediocre. They're not the original. And at 3, good ending. The good ending in FNAF 3 is the one we all try and get, as well as the one we believe to be canon. However, there are details that someone pointed out to me, like how Golden Freddy's head isn't there, but is present in the bad ending. I did know this, but had forgotten about it, deeming it inconsequential. But now we at least know why, because despite the Happiest Day minigame, we still didn't release their soul. They didn't want to go. They wanted to stay behind to torture William for as long as they can. We brushed this off at the beginning, but we know that now. And it's interesting though, since FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end of the series. So why, if this is meant to be the end, is the Golden Freddy animatronic not released in the good ending? When these were added, Scott didn't know everyone would hate the Springtrap jump scare, but he made Golden Freddy stay anyway. Why? I guess we'll never find out. And at 2, crash to desktop. I told you it would be in the next tiny details list. Golden Freddy is the most mysterious animatronic from FNAF 1, being able to move through closed doors while staying limp with no endoskeleton, and can even cause hallucinations like It's Me and Eyeless Bonnie, along with changing posters on the wall. I figured they can do this because of other emotions, but why do they crash us to the desktop when they jump scare us? It's a weird moment, especially the first time, but it's certainly going to crash you whenever you get killed by this freaky fiend. But this has bigger implications than we first thought, since now the series is about video games interacting with the real world, and even FNAF World had those elements, having to set up the clues to unlock the good ending in FNAF 3. But this is the first instance of FNAF interacting with reality, and it's our reality, not the in-game reality that we would assume. This also happens with Nightmare in FNAF 4. Is this symbolic of death? Like, if you die in the FNAF universe, do you get reborn in ours? And if that's the case, are we going to have to deal with a real William Afton sometime soon? Keep an eye on the news, and don't go to Chuck E. Cheese. Finally, in at number 1, preference. Sister Location was the first FNAF game to introduce entirely new animatronics with their own look, and the story is fantastic. But at the end of the game, we get a whole load of robotic parts shoved inside us without our consent, and then we start bruising from the inside until we vomit out the innards and go about our business. Like nothing happened for some reason. They needed a skin suit to blend into the real world and escape the facility, but why us? Sure, we may look like the only person in the place, but just before we get scooped, we see 2 technicians hanging on either side of our office. Why not just take one of them instead? Perhaps because they didn't trust Baby, or they knew how to fight back since, they're technicians, or maybe because they know Mike is also a robot, hence why Baby says he won't die after ejecting themselves from his body. He didn't have organic parts. His insides were an endoskeleton. That's right, I'm back on the train. It's happening. It's gonna be a thing. And at 10, pizza time. Pizza. Honestly, it's one of my favorite foods. I could eat pizza for lunch and dinner and be fine with it for the rest of my life. I actually honestly did that for my first year at college. God, I missed that meal plan. However, I totally missed the love that Mike seems to have for pizza in the security logbook. In fact, other than his name, it's the first thing he writes about. On page 6 of the logbook, it asks you to list 10 reasons why applying to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza seemed like a good idea at the time. Which, first of all, Scott, are you trying to get people to come for my job? Second, the number 1 answer, and the only one Mike gives, is employees get free pizza, which is understandable understandable and could be considered a one-off. However, way later on in the book, on page 87 to be exact, interesting number by the way, when asking which animatronic would win in a fight and why, Mike writes for the glory of pizza next to a swashbuckling Captain Bonnie. And if one mention of chewing gum is enough to connect him to the older brother, damn, this guy really likes pizza. And at 9, book 10. Fazbear Frights Book 10 releases on September 7th, 2021, which is also my birthday and the day Spider-Man PS4 came out in 2018. Fun story, I actually didn't know about that game until I went to Fan Expo 2018 and met the Jovenshire who asked me about it since I was wearing a Spider-Man costume, so that was a nice way to find out. But I guess that day is just a good time to release things out into the world, to bless the world, so to speak. However, the book description, at least of one of the stories, really caught my eye. The 10th book, titled Friendly Face, is written by Scott Cawthon and Andrea Wagner, and has the description of, quote, Andrew can't spend his money fast enough on a happy companion guaranteed to keep his friend's memory alive. Which sounds awfully familiar to me, since it's my theory about what happened to Crying Child, how William programmed a robot to be an older version of Crying Child, except named him Michael and gave him memories of killing his younger brother in an effort to keep him away from the Fazbear restaurants. But also, the name Andrew rings a bell, since it's the name of the spirit who possesses William and the man in room 1280, who had been keeping him alive from the inside. And I won't be surprised if Andrew's friend absolutely loves pizza. And it ain't helpful. The security logbook seems to make a lot of headlines in these lists, but that's because it's packed full of so many ideas and theories if you know where to look. For example, looking outside the book to the concepts and universe that involve the book. The survival logbook is meant to be the security logbook, however Mike crossed out the word security and writes in survival. But this is a form of bringing us into the FNAF canon, by making us a night guard and this book being our training guide. But that begs the question, why this book? Why a book that has clearly been written in, especially on important things like incident logs, and why one that just straight up trashes the company, saying that this is basically a death wish and that we should have never taken this job unless it was for the pizza. It could be the last one, but even if it was, I'm sure they would print a new one with all the graffiti that's covering this book, and I mean like, it's even covered in blood for God's sakes. I mean, he crossed out security and also wrote survival. It must be because the other guard or whoever hired you knows about the danger and wants you to survive. Hell, this could all just be a ruse and there was no Mike to begin with and they just wrote the book to make it more relatable to you. And at 7, Springtrap's Revenge. Yet another questionable business decision from Fazbear Entertainment. Springtrap's Revenge is a VR game that is the subject of the Fazbear Fright story in the flesh from Bunny Call, the 5th book in the series. The story revolves around a game game developer named Matt who creates a Springtrap AI using all of his anger from a divorce and multiple failed relationships. However, the game is too difficult, so instead Matt reprograms the game to torture Springtrap. For some reason, because he kept killing him. It's a game, dude, just make it easier. My question is, why would they make a whole VR game around surviving Springtrap when he was a real-life serial killer in their reality? Like, sure, in our world, we wouldn't care because he isn't real, but it's not like Valve or Stress Level Zero is going around making Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy survival games, because it would be in poor taste, and it would be way too real and disrespectful to the victims of those killers, or I mean, I guess anyone related to the victims of those killers. So why would Fazbear Entertainment willingly make a video game revolving around the killer that ruined their reputation in the first place? It seems like a horrible idea. Like in a world where everyone's getting cancelled. Why? And at 6, Bite of 87. The survival logbook makes yet another appearance on this list, this time either solidifying or making the Bite of 87 even more confusing. The Bite of 87 being the mysterious incident where someone, presumably Jeremy from FNAF 2, gets his frontal lobe bitten off by an animatronic. We thought we had the animatronic who did it pinned as Mangle, but then Ultimate Custom Night came along and proposed that maybe it was Toy Chica, with the line, "Where's my beak?" lodged in your forehead, of course. However, I think the logbook can actually give us more of an answer as to who done it. On page 35, the book asks you some would you rather questions about what you would do if you were trapped under a desk for a week surrounded by baby-themed animatronics. The last question it asks you is, would you rather lose a frontal lobe or an arm? Now, every other question makes sense for that situation aside from this one, so why would it ask this? To remind us of the Bite of 87, like we could forget, since on page 87 we see a couple animatronic cage matches with you determining the winner and why. On page 86 this occurs as well. Both animatronics up for debate are in this section, however Mangle is the only one that appears on page 87 and is clearly set up to win, being pitted against Balloon Boy. Chica is also present, but on page 86 and against Freddy, a much more fair matchup. Is this Scott correcting us from what we thought we learned in Ultimate Custom Night, or is this just another coincidence or diversion? Tell me what you think and why in the comments. Get it? Because it's like that section. Halfway through in at number 5, why Baby? One question I've had and seen a couple times is the question of why Baby was kicked out. We know that she has an argument and that's mostly why, but how did they know what parts were Baby's and why did they even include her in the first place? Well, they assumingly needed her abilities, but they could separate themselves because of Remnant. Something I rediscovered while researching my last video, the top 10 souls trapped in FNAF animatronics, is that in the FNAF novels it's revealed that the Funtime animatronics all contain the souls of the original 5 missing children. And that's probably where the idea to group together as Ennard came from. The desire for all parts of their souls to be together, or as close as they can be. And that's also probably a factor in why they kicked Baby out, since she contains the soul of Elizabeth Afton, the daughter of the man who took all their lives. And also because, you know, she doesn't have the soul of any of the missing children, so she was just an extra. They used her and they're like, wham bam, thank you ma'am. And for clarification, I will put you back together, a line that has caused a lot of turmoil, especially on this channel, since whenever I mention it, I'm typically referring to a theory that many people seem to disregard and even despise. However, this time I'm not talking about potential robots, I'm talking Ultimate Custom Night, since one of Nightmare Freddy's lines is, I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed. And that line speaks volumes. I'll talk more about why later in this list, but this helps us confirm one thing that we've suspected since FNAF 4, that William Afton is speaking through psychic friend Fredbear. The Fredbear plush we see follow us around during the 8-bit minigames of FNAF 4, that we later learn is being used as the camera by Afton. This proves it as being William because of the clarification, but not by you. Like, why would he say that unless William was an option? Unless he had made some sort of promise like that before, and the only other time we hear the line is in FNAF 4. This is referencing the I will put you back together line, not the I put her back together that Michael says in Sister Location, because that's just a totally different thing. And at 3, intentional glitch. Glitch Trap is an odd character, an accidental addition to FNAF VR that somehow ends up interacting with the environment and altering aspects of the game. Well, does he? I've always questioned why Glitch Trap is able to move the curtain at the end of the game and seemingly even put us in the Freddy suit. Like, sure, he's a spirit technically, but he's also game code and would have to obey the laws of such, right? Like, any being must obey the laws of the form they inhabit or whatever they say in It Chapter 2. So how is he able to move things like the curtain when I can't? Simple. He wasn't an accident. If he was a glitch, unintentional, how would the ending make sense? Who would put us in the Freddy suit? We wouldn't crawl in there ourselves after all. I mean, like, we know what would happen. Was there another character there? Did Glitch Trap replace them? No, we didn't. He was meant to be there, since you can see this ending without collecting all 16 tapes, so he wouldn't be reassembled yet. Glitch Trap was an intentional feature of this game, which makes me think, who else is working for him, since Vanny wouldn't be possessed or under his control at this point, because we know that she gets possessed because of this game. Or at least, we're pretty sure. We also are pretty sure she's Tape Girl. And at 2, Nightmare's brain. This is a forgotten and maybe even unnoticed detail by some from FNAF 4 that was recently pointed out to me. Nightmare from FNAF 4's final level actually has a brain. You can kind of see it, like you can see the silhouette of it behind like his like semi-transparent head. Whether this was meant to represent Crying Child being rebuilt as a robot, with his brain obviously still being alive since we're experiencing these nightmares in the game, or if it was just meant to hint at how some of these animatronics were created, the idea of brains in animatronics hasn't gone away. In fact, it's been highlighted. Take the FNAF VR Curse of Dreadbear DLC. In that DLC, we get a minigame where we must program our own Dreadbear according to preset directives. These are all calibrated into a brain that we must color, size, and configure before putting into Dreadbear's head. If we get it wrong or take too long to do so, we get attacked and killed, which could mean that some of these animatronics are killing or have killed simply because they were programmed wrong, instead of being programmed like that intentionally. It could be where William got the idea to use animatronics in the first place, or the brain could just be signifying Crying Child's brain death at the end of the game, since if he catches you, the game is over. And the brain in his head is only a further way to symbolize that. Finally, in at number 1, the one you should not have killed. Here we are, the big numero uno, the one I said I'd be speaking about later on. The one you should not have killed is the main, I guess, antagonist of Ultimate Custom Night. This character, who most believe to be Cassidy, is the one causing this whole situation, trapping William in his own mind while keeping him alive in order to torture him for his crimes. And while this may still be Cassidy, Cassidy? I think it's Crying Child. I have a whole theory with my evidence as to why, so check that out in the top right corner if you're interested. But no matter who it is, the one you should not have killed cannot be Golden Freddy. While the evidence certainly seems to point us in that direction, now that we know William wasn't in hell or in purgatory in this game, but rather trapped in his own body thanks to the man in room 1280 from Bunny Call, we know that it just can't be possible. There is evidence in the form of Stitch Wraith that multiple souls can possess one thing, however we have not seen evidence of characters being able to possess multiple big things at once. I know that there is a character that possessed a lot of little things to my knowledge, but nobody has possessed two animatronics at the same time. In fact, in Bunny Call, William had to die for Andrew to move on to the Stitch Wraith. So based on the evidence we've seen so far, the one possessing William and keeping him alive, the one you should not have killed, whether it be Cassidy or Crying Child, cannot also be in the Golden Freddy suit. Plus, the Golden Freddy suit would not have been around at the hospital when Crying Child died, and if William had to go to the Fredbear warehouse to possess a hard drive, Crying Child would have to be around the suit to possess it. That's just how they've set up the rules. So yeah. And at 10, Cover Shadow. I recently purchased the Freddy Files Updated Edition book off Amazon and find what details really seem to be the most important. It's also an excellent place to find confirmed details. But one thing I noticed a while after getting the book was that the shadow on the front cover. If you look closely, you can actually make out the shape of Freddy standing behind you, which I have to say is pretty damn terrifying. This implies that basically anyone who learns about the Fazbear secrets because of this book, which is presented to be some form of secret files on the cover, will get gotten by Fredbear. This makes me think that there is certainly something more to this company, definitely something shady that we aren't really considering, or that just hasn't been presented yet. But it very well might not be that deep, but let's be honest, with Scott, it probably is. In at 9, Nightmare Zendo. Now this was pointed out to me last time, because in part 12 I mentioned how Nightmare seemingly has a brain, but many people were very quick to point out that actually that's Nightmare's endoskeleton, and you can actually see it specifically in FNAF VR, and it's actually true, which is just weird and just freaking insane, because like he's a dream. Why would he need an endoskeleton? Anyway, apparently the animatronic was used in Ennard's VR minigame, and I can't seem to find the particular situation where he's there, but I'm sure it's in there, since if you check the animatronic gallery, available after you complete the main game, not including the tape endings, you can see the animatronic right there, clear as day, clearly listed being present in the game files. So that was something I never really knew about, and I'm glad that I found out. So thank you for bringing this to my attention. If you have any more details, feel free to comment them or message me on Instagram. Messaging me is a more direct way to getting the information to me, however, because I do read the comments, but it may take a while. And at 8, Funtime Chica Remnant. Now this point seems like it would be obvious, but not anymore, thanks to some recently revealed information. In the FNAF novels, once Afton discovers that the original animatronics are possessed, he melts their endoskeletons down, resulting in the creation of Remnant, basically molten possessed metal. But then he takes this metal and uses it to give life to the Funtime animatronics. So if there is indeed a Funtime Chica, does this mean that she got the same treatment? Because if she did, which it seems to imply that she does, then the original 5 missing children didn't have all their Remnant burned, meaning that the FNAF 6 fire was pointless and Henry, along with our character, died for nothing because the mission wasn't complete. I mean, I think Henry would have taken this into account, but maybe Ennard just figured that he didn't need Chica to handle it. I mean, you can purchase a Funtime Chica for the restaurant in FNAF 6, but if you choose not to, does that mean that you end up ruining the story? I don't know, since in FNAF AR's Fast Facts, it's revealed that the Funtimes were among the first animatronics made by Afton. So maybe in the continuity of the games, the Funtime animatronics don't contain the souls of the original 5 missing children, like at all, unless it was just like injecting the metal here and there instead of making whole endoskeletons out of it, so it could have been done later. I don't know. And at 7, Not For Us. The job of FNAF 6 was not meant for us. This was made clear by Henry in his final speech, saying, quote, "And for you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you." This begs the question, if it wasn't meant for us, how did we find it? Since if a job is created for one specific person, I feel like it would find that person, and maybe even only that person. But not like in a metaphorical sense, like, oh, this job was meant for me. No, like this job was literally intended for a certain individual, yet somehow Michael Afton found it and then got it over that other person. And we know that this is the case, since this isn't a pre-recorded message, and instead live. Since if it was pre-recorded, Henry wouldn't know that it was a different person, or that Elizabeth was the one that he had cut off as soon as he started talking. Quote again, "Connection terminated. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, if you even remember that name. End quote. And at 6, like father, like daughter. It's actually in the same speech where we find out that Baby has always intended on being an evil animatronic, even to her own brother. Quote from Baby's part of the final speech. I will make you proud, Daddy, while talking about how she's gonna get us though. But why would she say this? She knows her father is there, actually. He's in the form of Scraptrap. So did Baby intentionally do this just so that she could become like her father? Did her death twist her mind in such a way that she now assumes her father will be proud of her if she was like him? Or is this something that William taught her? Because if we're looking for a reason his kids died, maybe it's because they wouldn't join in his killing spree? I mean, getting a kid to lure away kids is certainly easier than luring them away yourself. I mean, I don't know from experience, but I'm guessing. And is that why Fredbear's mouth was so powerful? Powerful enough to crush Crying Child's skull? Because William needed him to die so he wouldn't out him? Or at least put him in a coma and then put him back together, enhancing him so that he would want to help his father? I mean, it certainly seems that way. Maybe this is what Scott meant by nobody had solved FNAF 4. Halfway through in at number 5, intended owner. Who was the intended owner? It's a question I ask a lot in this series, ever since we figured out that we weren't the ones who were supposed to be running the FNAF 6 location. Who did Henry originally intend on giving it to? I think I finally have an answer. Scott Cawthon, or rather his in-universe equivalent who doesn't have a name, and since he doesn't have a name, I'm still going to be calling him Scott. So if Scott was the intended owner, there would have to be some form of connection, right? What could it be? Well, he's an indie game dev who made the games joking about the Fazbear tragedies because Fazbear paid him to do it. So he knows about everything that went wrong there, so maybe that's why. Henry's whole plan was to make sure that nobody remembered what happened with William and his misdeeds, so maybe he was going to bring in the one person he knew for sure knew everything that had happened. Maybe there was never actually a way out plan for him, and Henry just says that as a segue to inform us that he knows we ain't gonna leave. Maybe our character wanted to leave but just couldn't. I mean, the intentional owner being Scott's stand-in makes even more sense when you consider that Scott is the owner of the series. I mean, at least he was. So could it be him? Probably. I hope so. And at 4, animatronic interference. But why did we find the job if it wasn't intended for us? I know why. Again, in Baby's portion of the final speech, she seems to imply that the job was meant for us. You think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? Well, yeah, it would have had to if it wasn't intended for me, right? Well, it may seem like Baby just doesn't understand what's going on. Let's think about it. Who is Baby? She's our sister. She's Elizabeth Afton. We see her get scooped, hence the stomach mounts on the FNAF 4 animatronics. I mean, we loved each other. We're family. And it's not like that went away. We went to sister location to find her. That's why we're here. She loves us and wants us to be a family again. The whole gang is back together. Us, her, and dear old Dad. She interfered and sent us that job. That's why it didn't just fall out of the sky. It's because of her. This may be common knowledge or well known at this point. I didn't think about it until I was watching that speech over and over again for other numbers on this list. Baby is the reason we found it, and Scott was the one meant to have it. At least it seems that way. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Getting close to the end in number 3, sentience? Now, turning to the Fazbear Frights books for this number, could the animatronics actually know what they're doing? Or is this just their agony acting out? Quote from Dr. Phineas Taggart from the Book 3 epilogue, that you can take a saturation of agony at any kind of intelligence, even an artificial one, and they will combine together to transmute the energy of emotion into the energy of physical action. So it seems that Phineas believes that the emotion is what dictates the actions, not the individual who the emotions came from. This could explain the rash behavior of the animatronics and why they seem like they're in pain. It's not the children controlling them, it's the agony. The actual spirits don't have any reasoning behind their movements, they just go. That's why Elizabeth wants to make her dad proud, because while in agony she can't think straight. We just do, we're impulsive. That's what's going on with these animatronics. And we know that Phineas must be right, since he proves his thesis by creating the Stitch Wraith, which promptly kills him because it's full of the agony of multiple different things, not just one individual. Damn, a whole lot of things seem to be coming together. Penultimately, in at number 2, FNAF 4 VR. The series of minigames known as Night Terrors in FNAF VR is based on FNAF 4. We know this thanks to the appearances from Nightmare Eon and Nightmare Fredbear, as well as just the design of the room. But my question is, How do they know what this room looks like? And how do they know what these animatronics look like, for that matter? We're meant to believe that FNAF 4 takes place inside Crying Child's brain in 1983 while he's in the hospital, so how could they possibly know what these look like? It's the same reasoning why I thought Mike had to be the Crying Child, because of the drawing of Nightmare in the survival logbook. But Crying Child dies after experiencing these nightmares, so how could anyone have ever been described these animatronics or these locations? We know the dream house isn't like his real house thanks to the 8-bit minigames, so how did they get this model? Did they have a visualizer in the hospital room? Because we can't even see our dreams in 2021, let alone 1983. If you have any explanations, please let me know in the comments, because it can't be the sound discs. Okay? It can't be. He was in the hospital. There was nothing to actually alter the appearance of. Doesn't make sense. Finally, in at number 1, explosive ending. William dies in The Man in Room 1280, the third story from the 5th Fazbear Frights book, quite extravagantly, from what we're told, exploding into a pile of mush right before a pastor's eyes. But how is this possible? How could William just explode like that? It's not something that you think about, but I have quite the explanation. I will admit it's a bit of a leap, but bear with me. William knew about possession and maybe how it worked. He knew about agony after his daughter got scooped and his son got crunched. So, what if he tried to ensure his survival by intentionally causing himself agony, injecting or installing some form of explosive that, when triggered or when in the vicinity of a Fazbear warehouse, would cause him to explode from the inside out, creating what possibly is one of the most agonizing ways to die, even for the FNAF series. I mean, this guy was absolutely mental, even potentially injecting himself with Remnant in an effort to stay alive. So for me, it isn't out of the question for William to just shove an explosive in